Chapter 1070. Han Dong and the other two were assigned to the south side of the street and were responsible for the defense of the area. Now, the foreign fiends had yet to attack. Han Dong, who thought that he could use his official teacher identity, was unable to enter the church headquarters because of the blockade order issued by Father Lesos. The current situation required Han Dong to make a decision. "Sally, can you come alone for a moment?" Following Han Dong's call, Sally was called into an empty building by the street. Campbell stayed outside in case anything happened outside while the two were talking. Due to Han Dong's good performance and the current situation, Campbell knew that Han Dong was looking for Sally to talk about some business, so he didn't ask much. In a single bedroom in an empty building. His long legs blocked Han Dong's side, and his strong arms pushed Han Dong into a corner. "One of your advantages is already gone. Why did you call me out alone at such a critical moment? What's the matter?" "Miss Sally, don't be so strong. I just want to verify something. Since I didn't successfully enter the church headquarters, I'm considering whether to change factions." "Verify what?" "You said before that the madman last night had the strength to fight a mythical being. Can he really do it?" "That madman can indeed compete with a mythical being. With his personality, he once faced a mythical being head-on. Not to mention now that he has a hound. Compared to the original game a few years ago, his strength must have increased by another level. This madman's realm is infinitely close to mythical, and he has even found the corresponding mythical path. This time, he came to participate in the London game. As he said, he is not interested in the unknown divinity. He just came to eliminate the rebels, and simply enjoyed the process of this game." Han Dong nodded and continued, "A celebrity like him, and even you, Miss Sally, as well as Hope and Eugenius, should be very well known in the fiend circle, right? Since this madman can compete with a mythical being, you shouldn't be much worse. Father Lesos, who is in charge of the internal and external affairs of the Church of the Maelstrom, must also recognize you." However, judging from the receptionist's words just now, it seemed that the receptionist was right. The mad devil's information and movements seemed to be under his control. Not only was he not nervous about the mad devil riding the Hound of Yandalus, he seemed to be happy to see him and the other original bodies. "I don't even feel it." This Father Lesoth was happy to see more outsiders come here. Previously, when we flew over, a large number of atavistic bodies invaded the parallel world. I suspect that this priest deliberately relaxed the entry requirement. In addition, the receptionist's last words were that if he survived, he would be able to obtain an opportunity. Can Miss Sally make any guesses? Just say it. From the looks of it, you should have an inference. I'm just guessing. I reckon that the priest is using this opportunity to select people. Choosing people? Although we haven't seen the miracle of the whirlpool yet, it's still a miracle. But I also know that no one can control the unknown divinity that miracles correspond to. I reckon that Father Lesos let many teachers with good qualifications try to touch miracles, but they all failed and even paid a terrible price. Since it is difficult to find a suitable successor in the homeland. Now, under the watchful eyes of the old kings, a large number of atavistic bodies are participating in the game. The priest can use this confrontation with the parallel world to select people. Select the person who is most compatible with the unknown divinity. The attack and defense battle that is about to take place in the neighborhood around the headquarters is likely to be the first part of the selection. A large number of people with insufficient strength will be screened out in this process. When the others heard Han Dong's detailed explanation and found it reasonable, they might agree. But Sally did not. To be able to climb to her current position, careful thinking was essential. There is a problem with your statement. 1. What if the final selection is one of our people? 2. Moreover, even if one of their people is selected, what use is it to Father Lesos? He is already a mythical body. No matter how excellent such divinity is, it has nothing to do with him. Since he knows that many old kings are watching the city of London, why would he dare to do such a rebellious thing? I don't think I need to say more about what will happen to him in the end, right? Han Dong touched the tip of his nose with his finger. He had also thought about Sally's question and had a corresponding answer. Actually, the above two questions can be answered in combination. I suspect that Father Lessos has reached some kind of deep agreement with fate and even the corresponding participant who caused the London incident, the world of Saint. One of the conditions in the agreement should be for him to trigger the descent of a miracle and let a certain hybrid demon inherit it. The divinity inheritance here is naturally not limited to the dark inhabitants or other hybrid demons. As long as it can be inherited, there should be no problem. Once such an agreement is reached, the fate system may help him cut off the connection with this world and go to the world of Saint with a new identity to get the life he wants. At that time, even the old kings can't do anything to him. If I'm not wrong, the headquarters of the Church of the Maelstrom, Big Ben, should also be the location of the Door of Destiny, London, right? Cut off the connection with the world and go to another world. Sally was shocked. Han Dong's words made sense. In this way, there was no need to worry about anything. From the information I've gathered so far, the world of Saint should be very suitable for people like Father Lessos. Moreover, I'm sure that the other side has given a very high condition, one that he can't refuse. If it's really like what you said, this matter will definitely anger the old kings. So what if it angers them? The other side clearly wants to cause trouble. Of course, this is just my guess. Since the relevant guesses have been made clear, I would like to change the plan at the last minute. I hope Miss Sally can cooperate with me. What do you want to do now? Barging into the church's headquarters? No. I haven't lived long enough. Since we can't sneak into the headquarters now, your identity as Thorn won't be taken seriously. You and Campbell should return to the outsider camp. I'll continue to stay here. Since we have roughly guessed the priest's thoughts and then a selection plan, it should be forcefully stopped when the attack and defense battle reaches a certain level. We are in the opposing camp. Secretly exchanging information can also avoid danger to the greatest extent. I'll use my human identity to kill some irrelevant hybrid demons, which is also a legitimate defense. I only need Miss Sally to provide some information on my end to let me avoid those origin essence. Are you sure you want to do this? If you follow me, the safety factor will be much higher. I'm sure. And doing this is the only way to help Miss Sally win the bet. At this point, Sally's black gem-like eyes stared straight at Han Dong. The two of them stared at each other for a whole minute. Just do as you say, don't die. Chapter 1071. The plan was settled. Due to the need for timely communication during the attack and defense, Sally had to provide Han Dong with information on the movements of the foreign hybrid demons to prevent Han Dong from running into the origin. Han Dong also needed to report to Sally, to ensure that she would not fall into the traps set by the church or encounter some powerful priests, so that she could conserve as much energy as possible. Considering that the members of the Passage of Silence had the ability to block communication, normal consciousness communication might be blocked. Therefore, the two of them had to establish a higher-level consciousness channel to ensure smooth communication. Squeak! A gray tentacle with spots grew out of Han Dong's palm. A dark purple tentacle grew out of Sally's palm as well. They intertwined and formed a deeper layer of tentacles. The external characteristics of the hybrid demons were as important as their limbs to humans. They belonged to different tribes and belonged to different kings. Their tentacles were different in their softness, thickness, color, and translucency, as well as their corresponding attribute. For example, Nicole's deep-sea eight-clawed tentacles could not only bind and corrode, but they could also create arrays through suction cup. Together with the main body, they could achieve the effect of multiple casting. Han Dong opened the Void Laboratory and obtained void tentacles that could perform contact spatial migration. Han Dong's own tentacles, which were the tentacles of the Faceless One's head, had the effect of camouflage. They could even camouflage the tentacles of other hybrid demons and display the corresponding characteristic. When the hybrid demons reached maturity, their tentacles would undergo isomorphism according to their own attributes, further deepening the specificity and functions of the tentacles. Often, a single tentacle could identify most of the information of the corresponding hybrid demon. Currently, the two of them intertwined their tentacles and established an internal network, and at the same time, they obtained information related to each other's tentacles. Han Dong and Sally both widened their eyes at the same time. They were clearly shocked by the information of each other's tentacles. Han Dong sensed that the black goat's tentacles were stronger than expected. Not only were their strength, toughness, and numbers above his, but the purple tentacles also had a direct bloodline from the old king that allowed Sally to use some abilities from the depths of the Black Forest. Sally's shock was even greater than his. She had always thought that Han Dong was a direct descendant that Yellow Robe had cultivated in the human city. However, the information he read from the tentacle pointed to another old king, another person who was also close to humans but had a very special status. Gray matter. No wonder you can control so many abilities, disguise yourself, and even learn the vortex ability that doesn't belong to our world. Who are you? Let's wait until the London game is over. Yes. Sally turned around and met up with Campbell, who was waiting downstairs. Using Campbell's high-speed flight and the black goat's mental bewitchment, she quickly taught them the defensive line. On Han Dong's side, Meritus appeared in the bathroom of the cubicle and said with an unhappy face, "How is it? How did the black mountain goat taste? Did the interweaving of the tentacles just now let you see a different scenery? The blood flowing in the black goat's body should be able to lead your thoughts to the black forest filled with love. I thought you guys would start mating right here. It's just a mental connection, who would believe you? However, in a certain way you're quite powerful. You can actually establish such a relationship with the fourth prime substance. If this black goat goes crazy, the two of us together may be killed." Haha, indeed. Han Dong did see a terrifying scene when the tentacles intertwined just now. However, the stronger Sally was, the greater Han Dong's chances of winning. About 3 hours later, suddenly, a strong tremor came from not far away. At the same time, there was a sound similar to a missile explosion. It immediately attracted Han Dong's attention. At the same time, he also received a voice transmission from Miss Sally. Hope has gathered a large number of atavistic bodies to act together. A large-scale invasion will be launched from the north side of Parliament Square. The offensive and defensive battle has already begun. Be careful. If there are any movements of the prime substance, I'll inform you immediately. Okay. The scene shifted to the explosion site. He was a young man who looked like an ape-man and had a thick beard. Due to his punch from the sky, he directly blasted a 100-meter-wide crater in the street entrance area. The building collapsed, and all the defensive facilities at the street entrance were destroyed. Taking advantage of such an opportunity, the atavistic bodies that Hope had gathered in advance charged into the street area, and the offensive and defensive battle officially began. However, this primitive young man was not in a hurry to move. He seemed to be waiting for something. After a while, a huge black shadow descended from the sky. Boom! The ground trembled again. A terrifying black beast suddenly landed in front of the young man. It seemed to be his exclusive mount. It was similar to a black beast covered in black soft hair. It could maintain a standing position with a perfect spinal system. Its arm was divided into two at the elbow joint, a rear arm connected to two forearms, showing a deformed forearmed state. The downward arm was used to assist in standing and moving, while the forward arm was used to tear the enemy apart. It looked like a giant and also like a giant beast. It had no head structure. Instead, it had a huge mouth with fangs on its neck. That's right, this was a beast, ancient giant. Its overall height was 30 meters, more than 3 times the maximum. The reason was that, as an experimental subject, it had eaten some ancient meat and successfully survived. The meat gave it a bigger physique and strength, but it also erased its rational thinking. A giant sarcoma grew on its back, which was proof that it had eaten the primitive meat. The loss of its rationality completely turned it into a ferocious and brutal beast that relied on primitive desires to act. Just as the ancient Gu clan was about to execute it, Hope, who had returned from a trip, immediately tamed this beast giant. It became Hope's favorite pet, and also his war behemoth. Guga, let's go. The primitive young man was the anthropomorphic Hope, the 7th origin. He easily jumped and landed on the giant beast's shoulder. Several hairy tentacles grew from the back of Hope's neck and connected to the sarcoma on Guga's back. Using the primitive meat in its body, Hope strengthened the mount and freely controlled it. A heavy sword monk who tried to resist was directly stomped into minced meat. At the same time, a strange green plague began to spread in the church's defense area. The teachers would often smell a foul smell before the infection. It was like stinky boots that had been soaked in the sewers for more than 10 years and stuffed with pounds of fermented herring. The silent teachers could suppress the plague to a certain extent. But as the war went on, the plague that could not be eradicated quietly spread. When a wound appeared on the body of an individual, the plague would quickly invade and take effect. A large number of green eyeballs would grow from the wound, and within an hour, the eyeballs would cover the whole body. At the moment when the eyeballs covered the whole body and died, the deceased could see a dirty man in his 30s with dark green hair waving at him through the eyeballs all over his body. Chapter 1072. Giant Crater. It was Hopper who had descended from the sky and landed a punch on the crossroad, forming a crater that resembled a small meteorite impact. Another distinguished guest was here. The Yandelo's hound tore through space with its unique teeth and landed in the deepest part of the crater. The young man jumped down from the hound's back and carefully inspected the ground. He seemed to have smelled a familiar scent of meat. The young man extended his right hand and placed his palm on the ground. For a moment, the young man's palm turned into an abyss filled with fangs. There were low howls coming from inside and a strong suction force. Some substances hidden in the cracks were slowly sucked out and gathered into a ball of fleshy cells in the young man's palm. He could analyze Hopper's recent situation through this ball of cells. As expected of Hopper, the growth of his body is increasing instead of decreasing. He's much stronger than he was in the origin competition last time. If we were to fight head-on, I might be at a disadvantage. Although Hopper was the 7th origin seed and ranked lower, he was still an inferior ancient giant. The crazy young man admired Hopper. What he valued was not bloodline, identity, status, or the so-called chains of contempt. In his eyes, there was only one scale to measure, and that was strength. Hopper's strength was invincible among those of the same level. He was even much stronger than the young man. That was enough. Since you're here, I'll take a different path. The crazy young man took the initiative to give way and went to the church's main area through another street. Wherever he went, there were only corpses on the ground. There were no unnecessary screams of pain. Before the silencer's ability to silence the young man, their heads were already captured by the Yandelo's hound's space plunder, torn apart and held in its mouth. Before the Ape instructor could swing his sword, the scars on his back connected to his entire back muscles were torn apart by the hound. In a short time, a large number of deaths of instructors immediately attracted the attention of the bishop. A high-ranking instructor named Menda Gonzalo immediately moved after receiving the request for help. Menda Gonzalo, atavistic body. He was once a dark instructor in London and held a medium-sized title deed in his hand. It corresponded to a town in the eastern mountains of England. His type was dark inhabitant, flesh modified, which was completely different from a candlestick. From the name, one could tell that these dark dwellers specialized in the physical body. At the same time, they also incorporated the hybrid demon technology that supported London. The muscles that were overflowing with a metallic luster were actually stronger than alloys, and it would not affect the individual's growth. His back was filled with soft catheters. There was a high concentration of black blood flowing inside, and there were obvious traces of technological modification on the outside to support such a body. However, Menda was not satisfied. Because of his thirst for power, when he came into contact with the whirlpool ability from another world, he did not hesitate to bear the name of Rebel, and took the initiative to learn this power from the Saint world. He was now a high-ranking instructor of the Maelstrom Church. Flesh modification and vortex had a high compatibility, and it was enough to describe the changes that happened to Menda's body. This change also made him a miracle candidate. The conduits on the back were closely arranged in a spiral pattern. Menda's elbows, wrists, knees, ankles, and neck were all in a spiral state. Compared to his once robust body, he was now a lot thinner. Why are there so many dead people on Parliament Street? Turn your ankle. Menda moved at high speed. A large number of spiral footprints appeared on the wall. In the blink of an eye, he was already standing on the top floor of a building that was dozens of meters tall, looking at the situation on the street. Although he was confident that he could easily deal with the same level of mantis demons with the combination of his body and the whirlpool, it was better to be safe at such a critical time. As a high-ranking instructor, he knew the church's goal to a certain extent. The attack and defense battle that happened on the street was just a selection process, and the main goal was to survive. If there was something particularly difficult to deal with, it was better to avoid it. That was? With the enhancement of vision in the darkness, Menda saw a young man riding a hound. Not to mention the visual impact of the hound, the aura released by the young man made him sweat profusely. This is the first origin substance with the mad bloodline actually controlled the Hound of Yandalus. In front of such a monster, he had no confidence at all. Menda decisively turned around and tried to retreat. Suddenly, a strong sense of space came from behind him. This kind of forceful tearing of space could ignore the seal of the Silent One. The stench of a wild beast. Sizzle corrosive saliva dripped onto the ground behind him. At the same time, there was an oppressive feeling of being watched by the abyss. The immense pressure made Menda's body tense up, and the black liquid in the spiral tube on his back flowed faster. All along the way, there were only low-level rebels. How boring. I finally found a rebel at the atavistic stage. Also, the mantis demon aura on your body has almost disappeared, and you seem to have lost the essence of the mantis demon. Let me see the power you obtained from the other world, the power that can suppress the mantis demons. Don't disappoint me. When the crazy voice ended, the hound's sharp claws tore through the air. 1. The structure of the claws was similar to teeth, and they could tear through space. It was to the point that the claws could skip the process of waving and directly attack the target's body. Drip, drip, drip. A spiral footprint was left on the ground, and Menda was already standing at a corner of the rooftop. A small amount of black blood dripped down his arm, and the wound only reached the skin, not the muscles. It was only a small wound. However, the front claws of the Yandalos hound were severely spiraled. The claws, fur, flesh, and bones were all twisted into a ball, unable to function normally. A sound similar to a demon's howl came from the hound's mouth as it tried to slowly recover. This result shocked the young man. He jumped down from the hound's back and said with a face full of shock, "Is this the power of the other world? It's beyond my imagination. May I ask your name?" "My name is Christopher J. Green. Nice to meet you." "Menda Gonzalo." Menda stared at the crazy person in front of him, while also looking at the hound behind him. The hound had already cut off its twisted front limb, and a new limb had grown out. It was completely enraged by the injury. The hound's head completely bloomed, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth. A rotten stench came from the depths of its throat, and it pounced at Menda. Who would have thought that something unexpected would happen? The crazy youth's expression suddenly changed. He directly threw out a roundhouse kick, hitting the hound's head. Crack! The hound's skull cracked. The hound was stunned by this kick, and it fell heavily onto the street from a building dozens of meters high. Boom! The hound crashed into the building on the opposite side of the street, so much so that the storefront on the first floor was completely smashed, sinking into the ground and unable to move. Useless dog! Without my orders, you actually dared to act on your own. What a primitive life form with low intelligence. At this point, the youth's expression returned to normal. He stared at the senior instructor in front of him, Menda, who had piqued his interest, with his eyes that were as deep as caves. Mr. Menda, you are the first existence that has piqued my interest since I came to London. Come on. Use the power you obtained from the other world and attack me directly. I beg you, you must hurt me. I haven't experienced the pleasure of pain in a long time. Chapter 1073. At the top of a tall building. The airflow at the top of the building was spiraling, stirring up the air. The wind blew the young man's messy hair, revealing a face without a mouth, a straight nose and eyes that were like deep holes. Come, Mr. Menda. Show me your choice. Show me how powerful you are by abandoning your essence as a hybrid demon. Menda, who had originally wanted to retreat, heard the challenge invitation from the strong. Perhaps he was affected by the crazy temperament. His thoughts of avoiding the battle were completely erased, and he accepted the challenge. Okay. Menda's personification was more like a black human with metal muscles. As described before, the whirlpool, he learned, was mainly in his joint. It could give him an explosive speed, and through compression and twisting between his joints it could accumulate a huge amount of energy. Simply speaking, it was similar to a spring, but its efficiency was much higher. Combined with the hybrid demon technology in Menda's body, his speed could be ranked in the top 3 in London. Most importantly, this kind of whirlpool from the Saint world had a miraculous effect on hybrid demons. The whirlpool that Menda fused with leaned towards physical attacks, and when he attacked, it would have a whirlpool effect. When physical attacks hit the target, it will cause distortion damage. Normal parts will cause 0. 5 times extra damage, and fatal parts will cause 1. 5 to 2. 5 times extra damage. At the same time, it will cause the regeneration effect of the hit part to be greatly weakened, and the target will lose the corresponding function for a period of time. When dealing with hybrid demons, the whirlpool effect will be doubled. When hitting a fatal part, the hybrid demon core, there is a certain chance of instant death. He stared at the youth in front of him, who had his arms open and was full of flaws. Since the battle had already begun, this was a great opportunity. The tube connected to Menda's back was crazily transporting the black liquid, maximizing the energy supply. Explode. The energy accumulated in his ankle was instantly released in an explosive manner. Crack! The rocks under his feet all exploded. Menda's speed instantly exceeded the speed of sound. The youth didn't react at all, and he still maintained his posture with his arms open. Got it! Menda was also an atavistic body with rich combat experience. The moment he punched out, the whirlpool energy in his wrist joint exploded. A perfect punch landed on the youth's chest. A tornado formed behind the young man's back, which was caused by this punch. The part of the body that was hit by the punch began to twist crazily. His skin, flesh, bones, and organs were all twisted into a mess, and the twisting effect was still continuing. When it reached its limit, Mad Demon's body instantly exploded. His physical body was completely destroyed, not even leaving behind a single bone. It's over? This. If it was any other time, Menda would have given such a perfect punch to a defenseless target. Menda definitely wouldn't have any doubts and would have believed that the target was dead. However, the situation before him was different. His current opponent was the hybrid demon with the highest evaluation among the atavistic hybrid demons. He had been acknowledged by many of the old kings, and the blood of madness flowed through his veins. He shouldn't have died just like that. Even though his physical body had been destroyed and he couldn't smell anything, Menda still felt that something wasn't right. Until a voice rang out, "What a strong destructive power!" The power that the otherworld gave him was indeed not bad, and it was especially effective against the hybrid demons. If that punch had landed on any other mantis demon, it might have been fatal. Even if they didn't die, they would have been heavily injured. I finally understand you. The blood flowing in your body is just ordinary dark blood. Relying on the support of the hybrid demon technology and persevering training, you barely achieved the atavism body. It's almost impossible for you to become a god in this life. With this kind of power system in front of you, it was reasonable for you to grab the opportunity. The feeling of your body being torn apart was very comfortable. Thank you. The source of the voice wasn't in a hidden area. Instead, it came from Menda's ear hole. The voice of the mad demon came from within his body. At some point, Menda's right ear had become a structure similar to an abyss cave. A dizzying ringing sound reverberated in Menda's head, causing him to lose the ability to move and kneel on one knee. During the ringing, Menda's right ear hole continued to expand until it was the size of a fist. Upon closer inspection, there were layers of wriggling walls within the ear hole, and something was slowly crawling out. Schwa. A slender arm stretched out of the ear hole, bringing with it a pile of sticky body fluid. The black nails made one's scalp tingle. Following that, the head, body, and other parts of the body slowly squeezed out of the ear hole. The ear hole directly expanded to cover the right side of the head. However, no matter how much the ear hole expanded, the brain structure couldn't be seen. It was just the structure of a bottomless cave. The thing that crawled out of the ear hole was the mad demon youth who had just been killed. At this moment, the ear hole slowly recovered and returned to normal. The ringing in his ears disappeared and he could move again. Menda, who was kneeling on one knee, felt a bit dizzy. He stared at the youth in front of him with a dumbfounded expression. What is this ability? Although Menda didn't believe that the number one origin essence had died just like that, the way the youth reappeared gave him a fright. Suddenly, Menda revealed an extremely ferocious expression as he put on a metal skull mask. For a moment, the flesh all over his body began to twist, his physical fitness increased by another 50%. His arms quickly swung out continuously, hitting different parts of the youth from the outside. It looked like dozens of spinning fangs had combined together and were about to devour the youth. Can you be even stronger? Not bad. It's a pity that the nature of your attacks hasn't changed. It's still lacking. Before he could finish speaking, the youth was shattered once again. Not long after, another voice rang out from Menda's body. This time, it came from his navel. The previous words continued, "Menda, it's still lacking by a bit. If your attacks could be a bit stronger on the soul level, perhaps you would be able to make me feel danger." After speaking, Menda's navel turned into an abyss. The youth crawled out of it in the same manner, completely unharmed. At this moment, Menda was holding his stomach as he vomited. His mind had completely collapsed during this process. He had abandoned the power of the vortex that he had been searching for, a power that was specifically used to deal with hybrid demons. However, it had no effect on the hybrid demon in front of him. The result of this battle had dealt a devastating blow to his heart. His eyes were gradually covered by panic, and he completely lost his will to fight. His body trembled as he spoke. "You're not a hybrid demon, you're a monster." At this moment, the kind-looking youth's expression suddenly froze. he revealed an extremely disappointed expression. Why did it become like this? I thought that you had the courage to abandon your hybrid demon nature and become an enemy of the entire world in the pursuit of power. That would make you different from the others, but you're still the same as them. Why are you still so inferior? Why are you still so disappointing? Suddenly, a power that came from the bottom of the abyss descended. In the blink of an eye, when Menda came back to his senses, he was already falling. His physical body had already died and his soul was falling into the abyss of madness. It had become a part of madness and would never be reincarnated. Chapter 1074. On the top floor of a tall building, the vortex was finally swallowed by the abyss, leaving the young man standing alone on the top of the building. His eyes flashed with loneliness. Menda seemed to have been killed instantly. In fact, when he attacked the mad demon, it was equivalent to standing on the edge of madness and constantly moving towards the abyss. Faith, or virtue, could prevent him from being attacked by madness in the abyss, but once the individual lost their will to fight and their willpower was exhausted, they would be devoured by the abyss. They would be turned into food for madness, unable to realize the process of their own death. When Menda couldn't understand the young man's ability and began to doubt himself and fear, he had already failed. Although disappointing, his combat power is really good. At least with his identity as a dark resident, he definitely can't exert such strength, and it's impossible for him to crush me twice. The vortex from another world is indeed highly lethal to the hybrid demons. If this guy can cross the door and touch a certain level of the mythical realm, I might really be in danger. No wonder that old man forced me to participate in the London game. I have to say, it's still a bit interesting. Eugenius, have you seen enough? You're still as annoying as before. You like to hide in the corner and observe. Do you think you can have an advantage like this? It's just a useless move of the week. After saying that, Mad Demon Christopher J. Green reached out and squeezed. An eyeball, hidden in the subspace, instantly exploded. At the same time, in a dark alley hundreds of meters away, the concentration of the green plague had reached its maximum. The sloppy green young man suddenly covered his eyes. Drip, 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 a large amount of green liquid seeped out from his eye socket. The structure of his eyes had been damaged to a certain extent. At the same time, he showed a hateful expression. His hair turned into gray tentacles full of green eyeballs and floated in the air. At this moment, a person walked in from the entrance of the alley. The black goat's hooves were very conspicuous, and the footsteps were easy to distinguish. Eugenius, long time no see. Did you provoke that lunatic? Eugenius, whose eyes were injured, was in a very bad mood. He directly threw more than a dozen eyeball tentacles at the entrance of the alley. Seeing that these strange tentacles were about to touch the black goat, reason took over and the tentacles suddenly stopped. A hoarse voice sounded, "Sally, do you still remember our agreement in the source game? Also, I don't think you want that lunatic to win this game. Share the information you just saw with me. I will also think of a way to stop that madman." After saying that, the green tentacle peeled off an eyeball that was emitting a green fluorescent luster and landed in Sally's palm. "Thank you. In return, please tell me some of your deductions." When Sally told him about Han Dong's reasoning, the man was surprised at first, but then he nodded. "Eugenius, there's one more thing. In the rebel church, there's an informant of mine. A portion of his body's attributes are inclined towards humans. Remember not to injure him." Eugenius did not respond. His body slowly turned into a puddle of rotten mucus and crawled into the sewer. His aura disappeared too. Sally immediately communicated with Han Dong the moment she received the information. Intertwining tentacles. Because the two of them had established a consciousness channel in advance, as long as one of them requested to connect, the consciousness channel would open. Their consciousnesses seemed to be standing at the border between the Black Forest and the Gray Ridge Plateau as they communicated. "Miss Sally, what's the matter?" Han Dong was hiding in an empty building and secretly observing. He planned to be a pure bystander and muddle through this attack and defense of London. "I'll tell you about the movements of a few primordials and show you something while I'm at it. Hope is riding a giant with an enormous physique. He's carrying a large number of atavistic bodies to fight head-on with the Church. It's easy to recognize him. As long as you don't provoke him, you won't encounter him. I've just found Eugenus' true form. Using my previous relationship with him, I've roughly explained the situation to him and your information. He won't target you specifically. The green plague spreading through the streets is Eugenus' ability. You just have to avoid it appropriately. As for Green's battle with a high-ranking teacher from the Church of the Maelstrom just now, it happened to be recorded by Eugenus. It's better if you take a look at it yourself." Han Dong reached out and took the green eyeball. "How do I use this?" "Just connect it to your optic nerve." Oh, it was the first time Han Dong had seen such a technology that could store images seen by the naked eye in the eyeball. A gray tentacle separated from the back of the head and connected to the eyeball. One by one, the ultra-high-definition images were immediately read by Han Dong. He could even zoom, pause, and play them in slow motion under the control of his consciousness. At first, Han Dong showed an extremely surprised expression. He found it difficult to understand the exaggerated ability displayed by the mad demon, but he slowly saw the problem. When the high-ranking teacher named Menta fought with the mad demon, he must have been affected by an invisible field. Moreover, because of the physical contact, his body became a carrier. As a result, the mad demon was able to use him as a carrier and regenerate from his body without limit? What kind of crazy ability is this? Sally stared at Han Dong in surprise. When the primordials saw the mad demon's ability for the first time, it was also difficult for them to understand. It was only after many battles and analysis that they barely managed to figure it out. Although Han Dong's explanation wasn't completely correct, it also pointed out the key point. It is indeed related to the field. This involves the mad demon's bloodline. The mad demon released can not only gradually penetrate the opponent's mind, but also leave a mark of madness on the opponent. During the battle, it will constantly erode the target. When the opponent's willpower fades to a certain extent, it will immediately be crazily devoured. This is only one of his abilities. As you can see, this guy can send the Hound of Yandalus flying with just one kick. It's not just strength, it also involves some kind of technology and the quality of the tentacles. The purpose of Sally deliberately bringing this video was to let Han Dong clearly understand the horror of the mad demon. In Sally's opinion, Han Dong's performance was too confident, and this confidence came largely from his lack of understanding of the mad demon. But just as Han Dong carefully watched the video and listened to Sally's explanation, there was no decrease in fighting spirit, nor was there any fear or panic. Instead, ha 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 ha. Crazy laughter constantly overflowed from Han Dong's body, revealing an extra happy expression, as if he had found a confidant. Christopher J. Green, is it? I must get in touch with this person. I didn't expect such a guy to exist. He's actually this strong. With such a guy as an opponent, it's indeed difficult for Miss Sally to win the bet, but it's not completely hopeless. And with this guy's existence, we may be able to win a world-level victory. Chapter 1075. During the attack and defense battle, Han Dong was slacking the entire time. Since he had a rough idea of the purpose of the Church of the Vortex, Father Lyso's, Han Dong was even more determined to be a spectator. Without fighting or exhausting his stamina, he tried to conserve as much stamina as possible. During this time, Han Dong leaned against the window and observed the green plague spreading through the street. This is the plague released by the fifth origin substance, the revered Eugenus. The infected person's body will grow eyeballs. Both the internal organs and the external skin will transform into eyeballs. When the eyeballs cover 90% of the body, the person will die completely. Moreover, about 10% of the body will transform into an eyeball mass. The mass floated in the air and acted as Eugenist's external compound eyes to observe the situation on the streets and control the overall situation. That's interesting. Just as Han Dong was curious about the fifth origin substance, the revered Eugenist, Count, whose consciousness coexisted with Han Dong, immediately transmitted his voice in an attempt to dispel Han Dong's dangerous thoughts. This thing isn't interesting at all. Just the Shugas, hybrid demon, alone is enough to make one's scalp tingle. Shugas isn't an innate existence. Instead, it's a living product created by a group of ancient hybrid demons with abnormally developed brains and the most advanced hybrid demon technology of the time. They're better than average in all aspects, and all of them are brutal and strange. The fifth origin substance, Eugenist, is a special existence among them. Rumor has it that his mind is connected to the ancient hybrid demons, or that he has inherited their thoughts and mastered an ancient secret technique. It's because of the existence of the secret technique that the silent instructors on the streets can't completely ban the hybrid demon. Don't come into contact with him. In your human terms, this guy is also a monster in the eyes of us hybrid demons. Count, I'm even more interested now that you've said that. Don't. If you come into contact with that monster, this Count will never help you in the future. Seeing Count so terrified, Han Dong wanted to laugh. Of course, Eugenist's danger could be seen from the plague that spread through the street. The reason Han Dong wanted to come into contact with this monster was because he had the ability to communicate with the monster, the plague and the eye. Suddenly, Han Dong sensed something strange and immediately looked out of the window. Coincidentally, there was a maelstrom instructor who was infected with the plague downstairs. Due to his severe injuries, his eyeballs had already spread all over his body. Crack! The body exploded, and an independent eyeball floated out and began to search the empty building Han Dong was in. Han Dong had no intention of running away. He quietly waited for the eyeball to arrive. When the eyeballs, which could make people feel fear, floated into the room and looked at Han Dong, they did not show any hostility. They immediately recognized Han Dong's human characteristics and left. Sure enough, Miss Sally has already informed him. As long as we don't provoke him, nothing will happen. Count, guard my body. If there's anything wrong, remember to call me. I need to go to the brain to deal with something. All right. Blood vessels weave. A blood dog, whose whole body was weaved with blood vessels and tentacles, with eyeballs and sharp mouths embedded in the gaps, quickly formed. The underworld blood skull was hung on the blood dog's neck as a collar. Due to the divine blessing from the epic equipment, the blood dog formed with Count as the main consciousness could barely match the Yandelo's hound in terms of physique, pollution, and basic attribute. To ensure that nothing went wrong, Han Dong's consciousness went to the faceless prison. There was still a very important matter in the brain that had not been dealt with. It was the participant corpse that Han Dong had collected from the lowest level of the Thorn and Thorn Church. Crack, crack, crack. As soon as his consciousness came to the cell, Han Dong heard an unusually loud whipping sound. In the independent cell where Togu was, a headless corpse wearing a golden robe with a thorny pattern on the surface was lying on the ground. In Han Dong's eyes, this kind of suffering thorns might be a good match for Togu. It could even be said that, in the whole of London, no one could find an individual more suitable for thorns than Togu. Suffering for Togu was a necessity in life, and he needed and enjoyed suffering. The stigmata thorns, as a special, holy-grade product, also needed an individual to accept and play a role through suffering. At present, Togu secretly pulled out a core thorn from the neck of the corpse and whipped his own body. This special thorn could pierce Togu's copper skin and iron bones, and have a deep integration with the internal flesh. Han Dong also noticed a special point. While Togu was whipping himself and enjoying the pain, the thorns in the participant corpse slowly responded. They did not grow recklessly, but slowly wrapped around Togu's 2 legs, pierced the skin, and merged with Togu's body. Togu, this guy. Han Dong originally wanted to communicate with Togu, but in the current situation, there was no need to communicate at all. It might even disturb Togu's suffering. Togu was not a small character, but a hell monk with a special identity in hell. At the same time, he was also chosen by the mayor as a special member of Dry Town. If there was an opportunity in front of him, there was no need for Han Dong to remind him. He would naturally seize it. Han Dong hid in the dark and secretly observed Togu's enjoyment process. As Togu became more and more immersed in suffering, the thorns in the corpse slowly covered his whole body, resonating and blending with his body. Clang, clang, clang. As a characteristic of hell monks, the hell chains in Togu's body began to make noises. The hell chains were as important to Togu as the tentacles were to the hybrid demons. It was a part of him, and even an important part that supported his body and the release of his ability. It was the symbol of the suffering. This is. The thorns and the chains in Togu's body are actually merging. This is a deep-level formation. Will it transform Togu into a saint-level life form? Or can Togu control the thorns and still maintain the essence of a demon? The scene in front of him was far beyond Han Dong's expectations. With the passage of time, the corpse on the ground was constantly drying up. The thorns that existed in the corpse seemed to see Togu as a better carrier, and almost completely merged the main thorns into Togu's body. Hell chains plus stigmata thorns with Togu's self-flagellation as a catalyst. It was producing an extremely terrifying product of suffering, almost causing Togu to faint from the pain. Are those nails? Han Dong used the little magic eye to observe in depth. In some of the deeper regions in Togu's body, the fusion had already been completed. Nails with the characteristics of thorns and steel grew out between the layers of flesh. These nails seemed to be able to bring great pain to the individual, and even Togu was faintly twitching. At this moment, Han Dong felt a wave of heat hit him. Whoosh! Magma splashed. A fiery bronze hell iron gate suddenly rose from the ground of the prison cell, facing Togu. The top was also decorated with long demon horns and flaming skulls. Although it looked like a hell gate, the gate had the same tree of truth imprinted on it. The gate of truth hell version? This guy Togu has reached the atavistic body. I can't call it that. There should be a corresponding system in hell. As Togu reached out to touch the gate, its form changed. The newly fused hell nails became the main composition of his body. The saw blade inlaid in his head disappeared, and turned into hell nails that grew out from under his skin and were evenly distributed on his face. Evolution, a great demon. Chapter 1076. Hell World was a large world in the Black Tower's plan. It was an independent world with a complete system and did not need to rely on external objects to exist. Using the level of the hybrid demons as a reference, it was as follows. Below hybrid demons, ordinary demons, wild monsters. Imps, hell beasts, newborn demons, demon soldiers, mature demons, usually with prefixes based on their characteristics, such as ashes, pain, giant axe, atavistic demons, great demons, mythical demons. Legend has it that the Hell World system can support a total of 72 demons. Only when the original demon god dies will the new demon god have a chance to ascend. Old King, King of Hell, based on the demon god's foundation, after passing the cruelest and most dangerous test in hell, one can take the demon king's crown in the deepest part of hell. Togu, who was once Dray Town's number 8. He had already reached the level of a demon. At the same time, Togu belonged to a special group in hell. He was a hell monk that pursued the path of suffering. Currently, with the help of this corpse that contained the stigmata thorns, due to the resonance of the suffering attribute, the two perfectly fused and successfully broke through. Togu relied on his strong will to control the stigmata thorns. He did not turn into a saint-level being during this process, and continued on the path of a hell demon. As a result, a gate of truth in hell opened for him, and he advanced into a great demon. Togu, you did well. Slowly get used to your body. The next London game will need your help. Togu was very clear that this opportunity came entirely from Han Dong. He immediately knelt down and said with the most reverent demon voice, "I will bear all the pain for my master. I will also use the most intense pain on the enemy." Good. This unexpected situation made Han Dong overjoyed. Togu's advancement at this moment had a great significance. It was different from Count. Togu's essence was demon. He would not be suppressed by the abilities of saint-level beings. He would definitely be able to play a decisive role at the crucial moment. The demon advancement took a whole hour and a half. The attack and defense battle that took place in the streets had entered a white-hot stage. The teachers who were not strong enough, atavistic demons and below, were basically all killed. Even some high-level teachers died because of the origin bodies. Correspondingly, a portion of the hybrid demons died during the battle. Because these hybrid demons were pure breeds, they had never entered the destiny space and had never interacted with other worlds. In the face of this kind of power from another world, their adaptability were poor, and they were constantly suppressed by the saint-level life form. In a situation where his injuries continued to accumulate and he was unable to receive treatment, he eventually died in battle. Of course, the main reason they had died was because they had encountered a few high-level instructors. Otherwise, with the powerful life force of the atavistic hybrid demons, it would have been very difficult for them to die. When Han Dong returned to the empty building, nothing had happened. Only Count was sitting at the side, licking its paws in boredom. It should be about time. Most of the ordinary teachers on the street are dead. The entire street that the church used as a defensive line had been completely contaminated by the hybrid demons. It was not just eugenist's plague. The streets were also filled with biological eggs, produced by other atavistic creatures. They were secreting stinky bodily fluids, grotesque insect nests, and swollen lumps of flesh that blocked the buildings and alleys. The next stage should be coming soon. Perhaps they will notify us, or perhaps they will need us to proceed to the next stage on our own. At this moment, Han Dong immediately received a telepathic message from Sally. "Where did you go just now? I can't even contact you with my consciousness." "I took a nap." "You. Forget it. Your inference was correct. Father Lysos was indeed using the London game to filter out the players. The offensive and defensive battles that took place here eliminated all the players who weren't strong enough. The next stage had begun, and the priest took the initiative to open the church door. Hurry to the Big Ben, which is the church's main church. Grimm, Eugenist, and Hope had already entered the clock tower, and many hybrid demons had entered at the same time. Logically speaking, whether it was the crazy Grimm or the competitive Hope, it was impossible for them to behave in the church. However, there was no sound from inside the clock tower for a long time. I suspect that Father Lysos has the king-level title deed of the City of London in his hands. He has long since used the title deed to carry out a large-scale renovation of the main church. Perhaps there is a deeper space inside. Or perhaps, as you said, he has already established a connection with the saint-level world, causing the clock tower where the gate of destiny exists to undergo a complete change or even become a part of the saint-level world. Hurry up and come over. Okay, Miss Sally, you go in first. I will still act as an official instructor and go in alone. Okay. As Sally stepped into the Big Ben, Han Dong could clearly feel that the connection between the two had been greatly weakened. Spatial isolation. If it is as Sally speculated, the interior of the clock tower has completely changed, and even turned into the environment of the saint-level world, the situation is slightly troublesome. Once the world erosion occurs, once we are in danger, it will be difficult for the old kings outside to intervene. But since the old kings are always watching here, they should be thinking more deeply than I am. Most of the silent instructors had died in the attack and defense battle. The forbidden space was lifted. A pair of bone wings grew out of his back and carried Han Dong to a safe height. As expected, there are still hybrid demons guarding here. They know that some of the instructors who escaped will quietly sneak back to the Big Ben. They plan to intercept here, or they don't want to compete with the original demons, so they simply spend some time outside. Han Dong, who was flying high in the sky, used his demon eye to accurately capture the 3 atavistic demons near the Big Ben. One of the hybrid demons was wrapped in a giant cloak and floating in the air. Flat transparent tentacles extended out from the cloak, and at the same time, they were emitting ultrasonic waves in all directions. There was another one that looked like a ghoul, but its body was the size of a tank. It wantonly crawled on the nearby streets, hunting in the most primitive way. The last one was disguised as a tree and stood near the Big Ben. If Han Dong hadn't observed carefully, he might not have noticed it. It looked like an evergreen tree on the outside, but in fact it had many thick roots hidden underground. The roots and tentacles constantly stirred the soil. Once a target approached, it would instantly be entangled by the roots and turned into nutrient. After confirming the movements of the 3 hybrid demons, Han Dong directly swooped down in front of the Big Ben Street. This action attracted the attention of the 3 hybrid demons at the same time. Root-like tentacles had already drilled out from the ground and wrapped around Han Dong's calf. Under the gazes of the 3 atavistic demons filled with killing intent, the pressure was still quite great. However, Han Dong was someone who had slept on the Bufo's leg before, so this kind of scene was nothing. He had already thought of a countermeasure. Strands of void luster lit up between his legs. Han Dong's unique, void-toed steps took 2 consecutive steps. The first step directly teleported him more than 10 meters away, and the second step entered the Big Ben. Such rapid movements even made the 3 atavistic demons outside the door unable to react. The ghoul that was as large as a tank stuck out a tongue with a skull at the tip and whispered, "It's strange. Why does this person have the smell of a ghoul?" Floating in the air, the transparent hybrid demon hidden in the cloak noticed the starlight under Han Dong's feet. Its chubby round head twisted to the side and said in confusion, "Void? Could it be that, apart from those 4, then the second prime is also here? No, there's a huge difference in appearance and ability. Where did this person come from?" Chapter 1077. When he stepped through the door of the church, Han Dong felt like he had entered the Destiny realm. London's Gate of Destiny is located in Big Ben. If Father Lessos, who started the rebellion, really stole the king's title deed, then, through the Gate of Destiny, he signed a relevant agreement with the Black Tower or the corresponding participants' Saint World. It is really possible to cause world erosion. After all, the title deed is the physical representation of the world's sovereignty. As long as the other party invades the title deed, it can cause world erosion. The situation is a bit complicated. With doubts, Han Dong came inside the church. The scene in front of him vividly displayed the theme of world erosion. What appeared in front of Han Dong was a church space that was cut, stretched, and filled with rectangles by space. In front of Han Dong was a church corridor with no end in sight. There were many rectangular protrusions and pits on the wall. Perhaps it was the effect of space stretching, or perhaps it was a specific style. The most basic style of the corridor was the Gothic church corresponding to Big Ben. Layers of sharp-ribbed vaults, colorful but impenetrable stained glass, and evenly arranged Roman columns. However, Han Dong, on the other hand, saw some extra-soil structure in the tunnel. It was like two different scenes in a game that overlapped with each other in a strange way. It was like the land of another world overlapped with the church area. So the air composition, microorganism content, and some spatial parameters were very different from the hybrid demon world. It was enough to show that world erosion had occurred. If the world erosion really happened, Father Lessos will connect the two worlds with the Gate of Destiny in Big Ben. This church should be regarded as the junction area. Since the hybrid demons can come here, the real saint creatures can also set foot in this area. Is this the second stage of the screening? Because of the descent of the vortex miracle, not only do we have a chance, the people in the other world also have a chance. In this case, we must treat the next London game as a destiny event. When everyone enters Big Ben, they should be randomly teleported to different channels to avoid meeting each other at the beginning. It is almost equal to find the vortex miracle in the depths of the church. Han Dong, as a vortex instructor, had a certain advantage here. Occasionally, a whirlpool mark would appear on the walls or glass of the tunnel. You can mark your current position by touching the whirlpool to avoid getting lost. He could also determine whether he was heading in the right direction based on the strength of the vortex mark. This function could save a lot of time in the church, where the space was expanded by dozens of times. As Han Dong ventured deeper, the world erosion situation became more and more intense. Other than the penetrating soil, there were also trees that resembled human bodies piercing through the walls. Some of the trees were even in a kneeling position. The scene in front of him combined with what Han Dong had seen since he came to London. He couldn't help but think about what kind of world the Le Saint world would be. At first, he thought of heaven, which was the opposite of hell. After all, the holy mark in the thorns, the holy scar corresponding to the heavy sword, and the Holy Church's method of cultivation. After thinking about it carefully, he immediately ruled out heaven. Firstly, as a demon from hell, Togu could absorb the stigmata thorns normally and even use it to break through. Secondly, heaven and hell were opposites, so the levels of the worlds should be the same. In Han Dong's eyes, although hell was a large world, it was definitely not comparable to the hybrid demon world he was in. The Black Tower, an organization that could control tens of thousands of worlds and operate perfectly, was unable to obtain sovereignty here. This also indirectly showed the strength and high status of the hybrid demon world. Now, the Black Tower seemed to want to use the method of world against world to erode and seize sovereignty. Then, such a world should be equal in level to the hybrid demon world. Or perhaps the Black Tower combined the greater thousand worlds into one and created a special world. According to a part of the description in the Stigmata Thorns, an ascetic ignored the pain and crossed the sea of thorns. In the end, he merged with the thorns and ascended to the saint level. Thus, there was a product like the Stigmata Thorns. The so-called saint world might be a world where everyone can seek the way and become a saint. As long as you focus on a certain thing, a certain path, when you reach the extreme, you can ascend to the saint level. Han Dong thought as he walked through the church that had been stretched into a maze structure. With the guidance of the whirlpool, when he turned into the right side of the passage, a strange aura suddenly interrupted Han Dong's thoughts. A saint-level life form. The first existence Han Dong encountered in the church was not the hybrid demon. Instead, it was a saint-level life form who had come to the junction area through the Gate of Destiny. A gray windbreaker covered his entire body. He was one-armed and carried an exquisite suitcase. The surface of the suitcase was printed with a large sacred pattern. He was barefoot, and every step he took seemed very light. He did not even feel like he was sticking to the ground. When the one-armed man smelled Han Dong's aura, he immediately turned around. An incomparably strange face came into view. There were no facial features. The face, and even the inside of the entire cranial cavity, were intertwined lines. If one had to make a comparison, it was like hollowing out half of a watermelon and threading it with a needle to connect white threads. The friction between the lines made him speak a language that Han Dong could understand. Vortex Reincarnator, your level is very low. Why are you here? Those who can come to the junction area should be individuals who have come into contact with the gate. You are so weak that you will be killed sooner or later. Why don't you become my servant? I just came here and I need to study the biological structure of this world. Han Dong had thought that by acting as a member of the church, he could communicate normally with the saint-level life form and even get some information about the other world. Who knew that this person would kill him as soon as they met? This made Han Dong's first impression of the saint-level world become negative. He did not wait for Han Dong to say anything at all. Dozens of white threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye shot directly from this person's face. Void-toed steps, whoosh. Wherever the white threads went, they only scattered the light of the void left behind by Han Dong. The void flashed. The saint-level life form's head slid down from his neck, and at the same time, a large number of broken white threads floated down. In a flash, standing behind him was a black scythe surrounded by black sand. Its left arm held a spear shaft wrapped in the leather of the dead, exuding the aura of the underworld. Anubis's virtual image in the form of black sand floated behind him. Nicholas in the form of the dead. Han Dong smelled danger and once again used the toad steps to widen the distance, seriously examining the target. He saw that when the black sand of death collided with the white threads, it was difficult to erode them, so much so that the broken white threads reconnected the head back to the neck. The threads rubbed against each other and made a series of uneven sounds. Divinity? You clearly haven't touched the gate yet. What are you? Chapter 1078. Divinity was also divided into high and low levels. Some low-level life forms, such as newborn mantis or knights who had just broken their species, perhaps because of the bloodline in their body, or because of the equipment or bloodline given by fate, they could show a little divinity. For example, the female knight who had killed Count with a holy sword, or the early Han Dong, who could cast death magic with Egyptian divinity because he was connected to the arm of Imhotep. But these were only superficial divinity, which was usually called mythical contact in the Holy City. When the Knights of Destiny learned that Han Dong had mythical contact with the death attribute, they also strongly expressed their intention to invite Han Dong. Because of the contact as a foundation, it would provide strong and powerful support for the subsequent door opening. Knights who did not have mythical contact in advance were often difficult to break through. This subtle divinity manifestation in the early stage was called contact. When an individual touched the door of truth, they would understand the truth, and they would have divinity in the true sense, which could be used. Whether it was the quality or quantity of divinity, or the quantity of divinity used by an individual, it was not at the same level as contact. Currently, the process of Han Dong cutting off the saint level's head with the sickle of the dead was far beyond the level of contact. Although Han Dong had not touched the door of truth, the divinity he showed was completely up to standard. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The white line was stretched and pulled. The white line carried the head again and quickly connected to the neck. The saint-level life form's attitude completely changed, and he even restrained his killing intent. First, he made a very polite gesture of bowing. The white line between the skulls rubbed at a uniform frequency, making a very comfortable sound. Sure enough, it's not easy to come to the border area. It was also because of my good luck that I was able to draw the test lot and come here. I came to the border area with only one purpose: to find the vortex miracle from your world. Competitors are my enemies. I'm really sorry that I treated you as an ordinary vortex shifter at first. From now on, I will treat you as a peer. My name is Lu Letham, and I'm a tailor. After that, The one-armed man tapped the password lock on the surface of the suitcase with his finger. The holy seal on the surface of the box lit up, emitting a white luster that was completely different from the one in London. Waves of divinity no weaker than Han Dong's left arm were constantly overflowing from the box. Click. The box opened. Han Dong thought that there would be countless white lines flowing out from the inside. Who would have thought that the things that came out of the box contained an extremely evil aura? Walla Walla, it was like the scene of a slaughterhouse truck unloading good. Pieces of white meat that seemed to have been bleached crazily flowed out of the box. The total volume of the white meat was much larger than the volume of the box. The surface of each piece of white meat was printed with the same holy seal as the surface of the box, similar to the pork that was stamped with a qualified mark. There were so many of them that they almost filled up the 5-meter space in front of and behind the one-armed man. At this moment, almost all of the white threads in the one-armed man's head overflowed. Using the method of threading needles, they quickly connected all of the scattered white flesh. A gigantic white fleshy giant with only an upper body floated behind this person, as if it was a stand-in envoy. The head of the white flesh giant was sunken inwards in the form of a cross, exuding a kind of holy rank characteristic that could dispel and suppress the hybrid demons. All the dead who died on my path will be connected by my holy white thread and become my apostle. You may be a very important part of it, and the characteristics of the whirlpool you carry will help me smoothly get the miracle of the whirlpool that came to your world. The words ended. Under the control of the white flesh apostle, he flew toward Han Dong at a very fast speed. Wall of the dead under the dead form. Han Dong raised his hand and summoned a large number of underworld corpses. Using the black sand crystal as a medium, he built a wall that exuded a strong death aura and sealed the passage in front of him. But the white flesh apostle did not hit the wall, but stuck to the sand wall like glue. This made Han Dong's expression not very good. But for a second, on the back of the wall of the dead, lines began to overflow. At the same time, at the end of the lines, there was rapid cell proliferation, and white fleshy lumps were quickly forming. Obviously, with the white thread as a medium, he first let the thread pass through the sand wall, then transferred the white flesh stuck to the front to the back and passed through the sand wall. The seemingly complicated process only took 3 seconds to complete. The reconstructed apostle slapped toward Han Dong's head. The white thread in the palm was like a needle. Since it could penetrate the sand wall, it could also penetrate Han Dong's body. Once the holy white thread invaded the body, it could not only increase the white flesh inside Han Dong's body, but it could also change the texture of Han Dong's flesh. This was the characteristic of the tailor. Count, get ready to help me. Nicholas, this thing has a strong suppressive effect on the hybrid demons. Even the blood dog I created may not be able to block it. I don't need blood dogs here. I only need you to help me draw the sword. I need to verify something. Maybe I can figure out the origin of the holy sword. The white palm was about to fall. Han Dong actually removed his dead body at this moment, and Anubis divinity also returned to his body. Remove divinity? Such a move made even the tailor. Lu was puzzled, but he was still very happy. It was a good thing to save some time. He didn't notice that a real death aura was approaching. Open the eye. The demon eye was 100% open, and there were even some tentacles floating in the eye socket. Han Dong concentrated on the observation of the demon eye, and the matter of the holy sword was left to count. The demon eye needed to lock onto 2 points. First, the white flesh apostle, the key connection area of the arm area. Second, the tailor. Lu's body structure. Drip, a drop of holy blood dripped from the palm, and when it touched the ground, it instantly formed a small blood sword and stabbed straight into the ground. Han Dong didn't learn swordsmanship, so he still needed to ask Count for help in the usage of the holy sword. Consciousness synchronization 100%. Blood overflowed from the eye socket, forming a cone-shaped eye shield. A bright red smile appeared in a tearing manner. Before the holy sword was formed, he had already assumed a sword-wielding posture and swung his arms upwards. During this process, the holy sword was formed at an extremely fast speed. It smoothly cut into the apostle's body. A large amount of white threads were cut off, and pieces of meat without the support of the white threads quickly fell. Void-toed steps. Lu was shocked that the apostle was injured. A void light flashed in front of him, and the holy sword had already pierced through his body, penetrating his heart that was full of white threads. Holy sword, why is there holy blood flowing in your body? Chapter 1079. The Heart. According to Han Dong's previous observation of the corpse thorns, he confirmed the existence of the thorny heart, and that the heart was a vital part. It could even perform brain-related functions, which was far more important than the heart for humans. The head was more like a part of the body for these saint-level beings to display their abilities, not a fatal area. In the battle just now, Han Dong fully opened his little magic eye and carefully observed Taylor Lu's heart. He could basically confirm that the heart was a fatal part. He even made a hypothesis that the heart was a vital core organ for saint-level beings. It was related to the foundation of life. However, it was not fatal to injure the heart. The heart was the core of energy supply and the center of control of the white thread. When it was pierced by Han Dong's sword, the white flesh apostle immediately collapsed and turned into scattered white flesh and white threads. Taylor Lu stared at Han Dong in amazement. Compared to his own heart being pierced, he was more surprised by Han Dong's other ability. Even in the saint-level world he was in, it was rare to see an individual like Han Dong who had two different abilities. How can there be saint blood flowing in your body? This sentence confirmed Han Dong's guess. The ancestor of the Hall family accidentally obtained the saint sword bloodline in the destiny space. The origin was unknown. Now, the saint blood had been transferred to Han Dong's body, but there was still no clue. He only knew that the saint sword had a strong restraining effect on the hybrid demons. After understanding the characteristics of the saint-level world, Han Dong began to suspect whether the saint sword bloodline was related to it. Oh? You know about the saint blood? Han Dong wanted to ask some information about the saint blood in a probing way. Who knew? Taylor Lu endured the pain in his heart and suddenly tore off Han Dong's shirt. The black vortex covering the front of his body was revealed. You are a participant of destiny. Strange, you are clearly a life in this world. How can you touch destiny? Moreover, you have also obtained the recognition of the Black Tower. How did you do it? Because you are unwilling to give up the sovereignty of the world. You group of hybrid demons should be forbidden by destiny and unable to carry out the exchange of destiny. Where did you come from? Lu's words made Han Dong understand that the reason why the hybrid demons were rejected by fate was because they did not want to give up the sovereignty of the world. They could only rely on the mythological paths that the hybrid demons had researched and developed. Unlike in the Destiny world, which provided thousands or even millions of routes, participants could still choose the most suitable and favorite route to develop. Furthermore, there were also Destiny events and rewards that corresponded to the level of the Destiny world, which increased the speed of the participants' experience. Me? I'm just a lowly race on this planet and have nothing to do with the hybrid demons. That's why I was able to enter the Destiny space. Can you tell me something about the sacred blood or your world? If possible, I'm willing to let you live. You should be able to sense that I am deliberately suppressing the energy within the sacred sword. If I want you to die, I can do it in an instant. A non-hybrid demon race with high intelligence? Living in the hybrid demon world without being tainted by any of the hybrid demon attributes? It is almost impossible for a world to give birth to two completely independent, intelligent races. It seems like your world is hiding a lot of secrets. No wonder the Black Tower would give us such a high reward and let us come here to test the world erosion. Answer my question. Han Dong faintly felt that the other side was deliberately stalling for time. As long as he felt any movement, he would twist the sword hilt. Your question? I'm sorry, I can't leak the secrets of the world, nor can I do it. Han Dong sensed that something was wrong. He decisively activated and twisted the holy sword. Zhi, however, the sacred sword was stuck in the target's body. While the two of them were talking, Taylor Lu Yi was working on stabilizing the heart in front of him. The basic function of the heart had been restored. At the same time, a large number of origin white lines grew from the heart. These white lines were originally growing in the heart and symbolized the tailor's origin. They were also his most important lines. Their toughness, hardness, and energy were much higher than normal white lines. They tightly wrapped around the sacred sword and suppressed the sacred blood's activity. Fortunately, you should have obtained the sacred blood through third contact, so you don't understand its nature and haven't been to our world. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to suppress the betrayer's blood with just my lines. That was your only chance, it's a pity. Swish, swish, swish. Thousands of lines instantly overflowed from the tailor's back. It was similar to a cocoon. He intended to wrap the tailor and Han Dong together in the lines and absorb the nutrients from Han Dong's body to fill the gap in the tailor's heart. For a moment, Han Dong's eyes were filled with despair. He wanted to break free, but he found that the white lines from his heart had already wrapped around his hands. It was already too late. Staring at Han Dong's face, which was filled with despair, the tailor's last remaining thread of thought formed a smile. The tailor had already determined that Han Dong was a fish on the chopping board, and there was no way he would have another chance. He gradually relaxed his vigilance. At this moment, a unique iron nail appeared in Han Dong's mouth. Mary! A tongue came out of Han Dong's body and stuck out from his throat. The toad tongue that belonged to Meritus was also the most powerful organ of a toad demon. In K, many toad demons used their tongues to do manual labor. When it resisted the iron nail, black smoke rose from the surface of the toad tongue just by coming in contact with the iron nail. Meritus endured the pain and ejected the iron nail with her strongest strength. Buzz. The moment it was ejected, it had already surpassed the speed of sound. Whoosh! The iron nail directly penetrated the heart and penetrated the source. You! Suddenly, the tailor's body was instantly enveloped in hellfire. There was an iron nail piercing out of every 5 centimeters of the tailor's body. Endless pain on the physical level, plus the burning of hell on the soul level. All the white lines were instantly burned. This kind of death process was far more painful than being killed by the holy sword. It wouldn't even die immediately. Han Dong quickly reached out and pressed against the target's chest. Chirp, 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 the tentacles passed through the sternum and came into contact with the heart. According to Han Dong's understanding of the saint-level life form, the brain function was also integrated into the heart. Han Dong wanted to read the tailor's memory and obtain information related to the saint-level world. As expected, the tentacles were disguised as nerve synapses. They wandered between the heart valves. Han Dong found that the structure of the heart was extremely complicated. There was a special area that accumulated brain fluid. The inside should be the storage area of the memory fragments. However, even though Han Dong was already very careful and tried his best to simulate the organs in the tailor's body, but when he tried to pry into the tailor's memory, he still triggered some kind of restriction and was strongly rejected by the power of the world. Damn it! Han Dong decisively chose to retreat. With a toad step, he pulled back more than 20 meters. Boom! The tailor's body that was still burning suddenly exploded like a human bomb. The power of the explosion even sent Han Dong, who was 20 meters away, flying and heavily hitting the wall at the end of the passage. Chapter 1080. Poof! a mouthful of blood mixed with viruses and sand sprayed onto the ground. Due to touching Taylor Lou's heart memory, a certain high-level restriction on the world level was triggered, gathering all the energy in Taylor Lou's body and detonating it. Even though he was 20 meters away, Han Dong was still affected by the powerful explosion. I was too naive. This group of saint-ranked beings who were chosen to go to the border zone must have set up an extremely tight defense line in the memory layer to ensure that they will never leak the world's secrets. I'm afraid that even the old king's memory of them would trigger the restriction. Although the Destiny Realm gave these fellows great rewards, allowing them to come to an unstable world and participate in this probing destiny event, the risk was equally high. I need to rest for a while and wait for my body to recover before continuing the exploration. Han Dong leaned against the wall, his arms drooping on the ground, almost losing all feeling. A large number of white threads were inserted into Han Dong's arms, destroying the flesh. These were the origin of Taylor Lou's white threads, which shot out like needles during the explosion. At that time, Han Dong instinctively used his arms to block in front of him, forming a sand wall and a flesh shield at the same time, but they were all destroyed by the explosion, most of the threads piercing into his arms, and some even burrowing into his body. What he needed to do now was to pull the threads. Indigo was a hidden trump card. Han Dong could only call out 2 girls to help him pull the threads. The moment Meritus appeared, she directly grabbed the white threads on Han Dong's body and pulled outwards. Whoosh! Han Dong almost fainted from the pain. Due to the proliferation of the white threads, the other end had already grown white flesh and adhered to Han Dong's organs. Mary's pull directly shifted the organs, even pulling out a small piece of his kidney, causing Han Dong to roll on the ground in pain. Wah! Gentler, gentler. Seeing this, Meritus stuck out her tongue. Who told you not to tell me during the battle that nail was so hot? It almost burned this feudal lord's precious tongue and left an unerasable scar. As she spoke, Mary extended her elastic, flexible, and highly flexible tongue and licked Nicole's body here and there. He licked her until she clamped her legs together tightly, and her face turned red. Of course, Mary was only doing this because she wanted to use the seawater on Nicole's body to nourish the burn on her tongue. Of course, she was also very interested in Nicole, so it could be considered as a form of caressing. In the current dangerous situation, under Han Dong's gaze, Nicole, who was licked all over, was embarrassed. She tried to interrupt Mary's licking by interrupting. Sister Mary, I'll first use the seawater to moisten the lines in Master's body, then you can pull them out one by one. Don't worry. He won't die. With the 2 of them working together, dozens of lines with white flesh on them were scattered all over the ground. There was also seawater mixed with Han Dong's blood on the ground, as if an extremely tragic operation had been carried out. Han Dong, who was sitting against the wall, was already in an extremely weak state, and his body was full of marble-sized wounds. After doing all this, Mary continued to stay in the body as a power bank, and Nicole returned to the cell. Han Dong must always let others think that he was just a person. Because the injury was more serious than expected, Han Dong's consciousness also picked a number of red fruits from the smiling tree, gnawed and swallowed to replenish the lost blood and accelerate the recovery. Although I can't get a lot of information out of them, but at least I understand the importance of the heart to the saint-level life form, and the holy blood does indeed come from the world where these guys live. It must be a super-large world with dimensions and scale exactly the same as ours. If I want to go there, I can only wait until I become a 5th Order Knight and complete the door opening before I'm qualified to go there. Just as Han Dong was resting against the wall to recuperate, the sound of footsteps clearly entered the eardrum, and such a sound made Han Dong puzzled. Because during the recuperation period, Han Dong had fully opened his perception. Once he sensed an enemy approaching, he would quickly move away. Before the injury recovered, he had to avoid all battles. But the current situation was very abnormal. His ears could hear the clear sound of footsteps, and it was the sound of leather shoes stepping on the ground, indicating that the other party was very close. But Han Dong's spiritual perception did not give any feedback. Deep concealment? But why deliberately let out the sound of footsteps? Han Dong slowly opened his eyes and tilted his head to look in the direction of the footsteps. He was already prepared to fight even if he had to endure his injuries, but his heart suddenly trembled. Reflected in his eyes was a man whose head was completely shrouded in darkness. He was wearing a spacious trench coat in the style of a priest's robe. And just as Han Dong heard, a pair of hard-toed leather shoes stepped on the soles of the man's feet. A silver cross hung on the man's chest. He wore white leather gloves on both hands, and the back was engraved with a kind of holy text that escaped black smoke. One hand held a skull chandelier, a convenient iron ring passed through the skull, and a dark candle symbolizing the characteristics of the City of London was placed inside the skull. The other hand held the dark Bible. Even though the man was already in Han Dong's field of vision, Han Dong's spiritual senses still could not detect him. It probably had something to do with the darkness that shrouded the priest's body. The darkness released by the skull chandelier could isolate all forms of spiritual infiltration. Staring at the arrival of the man, Han Dong felt a strong pressure. Han Dong, who had come into contact with the mythical form, Stone Skull Toad in the stone temple of Nkei, immediately confirmed the level of the target, mythical form. Combined with the attire, the identity was naturally inferred. The person who came was the leader of the London Rebels incident, the deputy of the London Mother of the Night, divine form, Father Lysos. According to Han Dong's speculation, this Father Lysos had signed some kind of contract with the Otherworld or the Black Tower. As long as he could develop a subordinate who inherited the divinity of the vortex or carry out a certain degree of world erosion, he could completely get rid of the shackles of the hybrid demon world and go to the new world to develop. Originally, he thought that the priest would stay behind the scenes and control everything through the land deed, watching the whole process of raising venomous insects. Who knew that he would coincidentally meet him while Han Dong was injured? However, Han Dong suppressed his panic and tried his best to show a sense of redemption like a teacher meeting a priest. After all, his identity was an official teacher of the Church of the Vortex. The priest stopped for a while in the explosion area. He bent down and picked up a broken white line on the ground. Then, a large amount of dark aura overflowed and spread in the current space, roughly simulating what had happened here. Then, he continued at the same pace and walked in front of Han Dong with his leather shoes. While chanting prayers, he reached out and touched Han Dong's body. In an instant, Han Dong's injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. These bastards from the other world really do have a serious discrimination mentality. They don't treat Transformers as their own kind at all. You did well. Being able to kill the blacksmith from the other side means that you have the potential to receive divinity. Continue to work hard. I believe that a miracle will happen to you. When that time comes, I will be proud of you. Chapter 1081. When the priest was giving the treatment, he unexpectedly found that the vortex appeared on Han Dong's body in a unique form. None of the teachers he developed had such a situation. The vortex was imprinted on the surface of Han Dong's torso in the form of a mark. It was not like the other teachers, where some of their limbs or organs were distorted visibly. It often showed a high degree of spiraling. Your vortex seems to be a bit special. What kind of characteristics does it give you? Adaptation. I don't seem to be like the other teachers, who can give the vortex characteristics to attack or magic. It provides me with a strong adaptability, allowing my body to control multiple abilities at the same time. When I got the vortex ability, the mixed ability system I learned before also separated on its own, and I can change my style according to different battles. Han Dong made up a lie based on his own facts, and as a whole, he also deduced a state of piety and respect, so the possibility of being exposed was very low. Moreover, because Han Dong killed a saint-level life form here, Father Lesos had a certain favorable impression of him, so he did not doubt such a reasonable explanation. Inclusive of everything, it is indeed in line with the essential characteristics of the vortex. Come with me. Not only was the lie not exposed, but it made Han Dong feel like he was chosen. Sir Father, where are we going? You killed a blacksmith from a saint-level world, and have reached the standard in the second stage, screening. I will take you directly to the third stage, screening venue, and at the same time, let you form a suitable team with my elite subordinate. The rules here are not completely set by me, so I can't let you directly touch the miracle. I hope you can pass the final screening, and obtain the qualification to touch the miracle with your previous result. Venue? The next stage of the screening will be in the form of a competition. Okay. Han Dong agreed decisively. If he continued to walk down the passage, there was a chance of encountering other individuals. With Han Dong's identity, encountering a saint-level life form or a hybrid demon could cause a conflict. If he was unlucky and encountered those origin demons, the situation would be really troublesome. It was naturally best to be able to ride on the priest's coattails. Moreover, he could use his acting skills to the best of his ability, and maybe he could get some key clues from the priest. The priest faced the wall and flipped the Bible of Darkness open to a certain page. A strange incantation was chanted. The spiral-shaped key floated up, and the priest inserted it into the wall to open a Maker's Passage, an unobstructed path that led straight to the next level. Walking in the eerie, pitch-black passageway that was dyed with black candles, the priest's head was shrouded in the black fog. Han Dong was playing the role of an ordinary instructor, so it would be impolite for him to use his little magic eye to spy on them, and it would easily expose his identity. Therefore, Han Dong had his head lowered the entire time, and followed behind him with a respectful expression. As they walked, the priest's voice came from the darkness. "You're not a dark dweller, are you? I don't think I've seen you in the church." Han Dong had already thought of an excuse and quickly replied, "Father, I came here the day before yesterday after learning the initiation ritual book. Due to the invasion of the hybrid demons, my training was interrupted halfway and I was told to report to the church. In addition, I'm not a dark dweller, I'm a messenger from Perugia City." Han Dong used his identity as a messenger and explained how he came to London without any loopholes. Perugia City was destroyed, but I couldn't do anything. My homeland was destroyed, and an exile like me couldn't be recognized, so it didn't matter where I went. When I came to London and came into contact with the vortex, I decisively chose a new route. Perugia? I heard that it was destroyed by humans under the premise of complying with the world law? That's right. I don't know the details. I was outside delivering a letter. Humans, what an interesting race. Father Lesos looked at the hybrid demon's overall genealogy and belonged to the Grey Walker, related to Han Dong's head. The priest himself also followed the rules of the Walker, imitating the way humans lived in London, and carried out activities related to the Church of Darkness. His view of humans was different from other hybrid demons. He believed that humans could exist together with hybrid demons, and they were not inferior races. Although humans had weak bodies and were easily manipulated by desires, their talent was unique. Reverend Father, can I ask some questions? Although I came into contact with the vortex, I don't know the origin of this ability. When I killed the tailor with great difficulty, he only mentioned Saint rank. He didn't mention a word about the world he was in. What kind of place did these people come from? The priest seemed to be in a good mood, and he said what he could say. A Saint rank world, a world on the same level as our world, but completely unrestrained, a free world that only needs to pursue the path. You'll know the specific situation when you successfully integrate into the miracle. I'm also under some restrictions, so I can't reveal information about the world here. Yes, I'll do my best to win the opportunity to come into contact with the miracle. Under the priest's lead, they passed through the developer's passage. Han Dong came to a compartment which looked like a lounge with a bench, a wardrobe, and a bathroom. There were also two strange teachers resting here. One of them was resting on the bench, with a sack over his entire head and a knot around his neck to prevent his head from falling off. The shirtless upper body emitted a metallic luster, which was better than the senior instructor Menda that Han Dong saw from the eyeball's memory in terms of metallic luster and coverage. He was also a flesh-modified person among the dark inhabitants. Not only were his joints twisted, this person's two arms were twisted into a fried dough twist, hanging casually on the ground. At the same time, he was also wearing boxing gloves. He seemed to be a boxer in London when he was alive. He was very strong. The other had just walked out of the bathroom. Similar to the jade feet of the dark elves, she stepped out first. Immediately after, a woman walked out of the bathroom. Under a bath towel was a proud figure, and a soft and translucent black tail fell behind her. It was fine up to here, but if one continued to look up, it would be uncomfortable. The woman's head had been covered by the vortex, and only her plump lips and mouth were left intact. The distance from the lips to the forehead had all turned into a concave vortex, and the depth just reached the back of the head. Two eyeballs were freely sliding in the vortex pit, sometimes in the deepest part, sometimes on the face. Now, Han Dong finally understood why Father Lesos appeared in the outer passage. The final competition, used for the screening, should be a kind of 3v3 competition. The priest only had two most trusted subordinates, so he needed to find another one. Han Dong, who had killed a saint-rank lifeform and expressed the characteristics of an independent vortex, naturally became the best choice. Chapter 1082. Due to the arrival of Father Lesos, the girl who had just walked out of the bathroom quickly knelt down in the most pious manner, her hands in front of her chest in a praying posture. The eyeballs that were spinning in the grooves on her face were fixed in their normal positions as much as possible. In comparison, the man who looked like a boxer on the recliner was much more relaxed. He just sat up slowly, facing the priest with his head covered in a sack, and greeted him in a normal way. Miro, this is your new teammate, Nicholas. You will form a team of 3 and participate in the final selection. The girl who was kneeling on the ground did not expect to find a new teammate so quickly. Her eyeballs spun like marbles in her spiral head, trying to spy on Han Dong's body structure in this way. The information she read was very strange. The newcomer chosen by the priest was a mantis demon who had yet to touch the door, but his body contained a divinity that could only be possessed by an atavistic body. Miro tilted her head, her face full of confusion. To ensure harmony within the team, the priest continued to add, Nicholas killed a craftsman from a saint-level world in the church's passageway. He won't be weak. I'll leave the specific arrangements to you, Miro. The 3 of you are the ones I think the most highly of, and also the ones most likely to resonate with the miracle. I hope you can perform well in the upcoming selection competition. After saying that, darkness shrouded the priest and he left the resting area. As soon as the priest left, the man in the sack called Z immediately fell asleep on the bench, not caring about his new teammates at all. As for Miro, who was arranged to be the team leader by the priest, she had a completely different attitude. She was very interested in the new young man. She changed into a black tight suit suitable for combat, supported her body with her tail, and moved in a manner that was close to floating, and came to Han Dong. Her body was great in all aspects, but her whirlpool head was a little annoying. Since you were chosen by the priest, you must be very strong. Speaking of which, why haven't I seen you in the church before? Did you just come? Yes. Then you must not know about the current situation of the church, and the selection competition we're about to face. It should be a few hours before the outsiders pass through the border area. Come here, Big Sister will tell you about it in detail. Miro rolled her eyes as she pulled Han Dong towards the bathroom cubicle. Han Dong didn't care. He had seen all kinds of hybrid demons before, so he was familiar with all kinds of forms. Holding the attitude of wanting to get more information, he followed Milo to the bathroom for a private chat. In the aisle of the church, any individual that entered the church would be forcibly disassembled and transported to different passageways to move independently. Only individuals who walked out of the outer passage within the specified time were eligible to participate in the final selection competition. The powerful Origin Yimo were naturally separated as well. Individuals like the Mad Devil and the Giant Hopper, who had mounts, would also use a special method to store their mounts into their bodies before they entered. The Yandelo's hound was directly sucked into the cavernous eye of the mad demon and kept in its own abyss. Hopu, on the other hand, kneaded his giant beast mount into a ball of meat and swallowed it into his body for safekeeping. They were well prepared for the London game. Moreover, they had no intention of using the miracle of the maelstrom to break through. They were purely following the king's orders to participate in the London Games, to train themselves, or to vent their desire to kill and purge the world of invaders. In a certain aisle, the Mad Devil squatted on the ground and stared at the scattered metal screws and a mechanical eyeball with a look of fear. He said helplessly, "That's it?" The one who encountered the Mad Devil was also a craftsman from the Saint-level world, Screwman. This poor craftsman had even given up on the idea of reassembling. His heart was filled with fear. He didn't expect such a terrifying creature to exist in this hybrid demon world that could be countered by their abilities. He just wanted to die quickly. The few remaining parts immediately gathered toward the heart and tried to self-destruct. The Mad Devil naturally wouldn't let him die successfully. Swoosh! 2 fingers accurately pinched the heart at the speed of lightning and threw it into the abyss of madness. In another aisle, quite a strong impact was constantly heard. If it weren't for the land deed supporting this space, the church would have been destroyed long ago. Hopper, with a head of messy blonde hair, looked like a savage. He was beating up a craftsman who specialized in defense. Mr. Iron Wall. Special. The craftsman believed that no one in his level could break through his defense through physical means. Now, Hopper's fist forcefully penetrated the many layers of iron walls that made up his body. Even his heart, which was protected by high-density fine iron, was smashed by the fist from the front. Until his death, he still couldn't understand how the hybrid demon in front of him had such terrifying power. Hopper didn't have any joy of victory. He only treated his opponent as an ordinary passerby. The invader that Lord Meat Ancestor mentioned is not that strong. However, this person should only be considered as an ordinary person. Maybe there are more powerful ones. I have to be careful. If I can win the miracle and give it to Lord Meat Ancestor, I can definitely exchange it for a large amount of raw meat, allowing my people to achieve a comprehensive transformation. Hopper retracted his sandbag-sized fist to its normal size and continued to go deeper. In a passageway filled with green plague, a certain craftsman, printer, Chi, whose head was made of a book, had a feminine body, and was draped in a holy robe. She was wantonly throwing pages and chanting the holy patterns on the pages through the mouths on her left and right palms to suppress the plague in the passage. However, the pages that had just been thrown on the ground didn't have time to play their role and directly grew eyeballs on the surface. Dispersing couldn't compare to the speed of the plague's erosion. The eyeballs that grew on the surface of the pages slid down on their own and grew small nerve-like legs. They quickly climbed onto the target's body and embedded themselves into the skin. About half an hour later, there was an explosion in the passage. After the battle ended, the eyeballs that were wantonly splattered all crawled towards the corners and returned to their owners' bodies. Black Goat Sally also encountered a craftsman in the process of going deeper into the passage. It seemed like someone was secretly arranging for the two individuals from different worlds to meet in the outer passage. The winner would be able to go to the final selection venue. The one who met Sally was a wood carver, Lou. Unlike other craftsmen, he carved a head for himself and matched it with a handsome face. He looked exactly like a human. This wood carver was very interested in the human form of Sally. When they met, he expressed his love and wanted to invite Sally to follow him to the saint-level world. "Dear Miss Sally, I can carve any part of my body. Whatever shape, or size you want, I can satisfy you. Moreover, my economic conditions and status are not bad. I can completely satisfy your needs. Come with me." The wood carver, Lou, knelt in front of Sally and expressed his sincere love. Just as he waited for 3 seconds and didn't receive a reply from Sally, the wood carver's personality changed. The wood carving master's temperament changed drastically, and he picked up a wood carving knife. At the same time, a mallet apostle that he had carved appeared, and he planned to kill Sally instantly. As long as there was a bit of meat left, he would be able to create a perfect wood carving for his own use. Ta! The goat's hooves moved. An indescribable pressure descended and the mallet apostle was directly crushed into pieces. As for the wood carver's original body, a deep purple tentacle pierced through his heart. Sally's absolutely arrogant eyes were filled with disgust, disdain, and contempt. "Trash like you is worthy of expressing your love to me." Chapter 1083. It was the bathroom again. It seemed that he had been spending time alone with girls in the bathroom recently, mainly because of Meritus's affinity for water. Of course, this time it was not because of luck with women. There was an important competition at hand, and even if Moreau was interested in Han Dong, she would not do anything that would waste her stamina at this juncture. Moreau called Han Dong to the bathroom to be alone, just to verify something in private, so that she could come up with the most optimal team arrangement for the upcoming competition. As soon as he stepped into the bathroom, the strange, ambiguous atmosphere disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a strange and distorted atmosphere. The candlelight in the bathroom slowly turned into the shape of a whirlpool, flickering slightly. The whirlpool Moreau stood with her back facing Han Dong, her body showing the soft female ghost posture commonly seen in horror movies, and all the nodes showed a certain degree of distortion. "The three of us are the last hope of the church. The other teachers have only touched upon the basic level of the whirlpool, and according to the systematic evaluation made by the priest in advance, they cannot resonate with the miracle. Only we have the possibility, and the upcoming competition will further verify us. I heard that an holy apostle from the saint-level world will also come and watch our performance as a spectator. If we can leave a good impression in the eyes of the holy apostle, we might be directly introduced into their world and gain a certain status and identity." Han Dong was not frightened by Moreau's distorted posture, but asked curiously, "Holy apostle?" "Yes." The priest said that it is an existence equal to him. He specially came from the other world to see who the miracle will end up in. At the same time, he will also bring a group of teachers with a good degree of conversion to leave with him. Mythical body? For a moment, Han Dong had more doubts in his heart, and some of his deductions had problems, and some questions were tangled together. "Father Lessos, what are you planning to do?" Han Dong's thoughts were immediately interrupted by Moreau. "An existence like the Holy Apostle is not something we can consider. We just need to do our own thing. Although the priest has acknowledged your strength, I still need to verify it in detail to ensure the best allocation in the competition. With that said, The twisted Miro suddenly turned her head and faced Han Dong with her whirlpool face. A strange energy was gathering within. Just as Swirled Lady was about to attack, Han Dong interrupted her with a question. Wait, may I ask how the competition will be conducted? In a group of 3, a one-on-one competition will be held. The vanguard, the general, and the general will be sent to fight in order. 2 out of 3 wins. Therefore, we have to test your ability before we can arrange your appearance. Z, who is resting outside, is the strongest warrior under Father Lyso's command. He is also the previous champion of London's kickboxing. Now, let's see what you can do. As he spoke, the 2 eyes in the vortex on Miro's face were already spinning at high speed. Deep hypnosis. She was the head of psychiatry at the National University Hospital in London. Type: Dark Dweller, Inner Demon, a special entity that can spiritualize dark energy. Inner demons were rare among the Dark Dwellers and were classified as a rare species. Most of them had a relatively high status in London. When Miro came into contact with a patient who was attacked by a whirlpool, she developed a strong interest in this otherworldly power. In the process of her research, she unknowingly became addicted to it and directly received an invitation written by Father Lysos. The changes brought to her by the whirlpool were not only the changes in her appearance. It was more of an improvement in the spiritual level. Deep hypnosis would also lead the target's consciousness into a whirlpool tower. While searching for the exit, the target's consciousness would slowly distort. Those with weak willpower would even be permanently trapped in it. The outside of the brain would also slowly turn into a spiral shape and die completely. Hypnosis was just an appetizer. Immediately after, a spiral arm that was both virtual and real slowly drilled out of the whirlpool on Miro's face. The tip of the finger had a structure similar to a synapse. It was a product of the combination of dark spirit and whirlpool. It could easily weaken the target's brain defense and reach the depths of the brain, to completely control the target or read their memories. Miro's so-called test was not just to test Han Dong's ability. She also wanted to take the opportunity to explore Han Dong's memory and figure out the true details of this newcomer. However, the characters who vainly tried to do something to Han Dong's brain often didn't have a good juice to eat. When the hypnosis was used on Han Dong, the effect was really good. It did indeed lead Han Dong into a whirlpool tower with an extremely complicated structure. However, the faceless head also completed the analysis in a second. It directly generated a key for Han Dong and casually found a door in the tower and easily left. The whirlpool Lady Miro's actions put Han Dong in a difficult position. Since the next competition was a team event, Han Dong planned to continue to be a bystander. But Miro's test went straight to the brain, making Han Dong in a dilemma. Seeing that the spirit's arm was about to touch his forehead, snap! A mummy's arm that was emitting death energy instantly lifted up. With the death energy as a medium, it firmly grabbed the spirit's arm. Miss Miro, my head can't be touched. You're also a psychic ability user? Just now, it was considered a deep hypnosis at 0 distance. People of the same level would be unable to move for at least a minute. My head is just a little special. If you used other methods, I definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. I'm very weak. The reason why I was able to kill the other world's craftsman was just a coincidence. No matter how Han Dong explained, this Miro knew in her heart. When the time came, she would also make reasonable arrangements. Hurry up and rest for a while. It wasn't easy to kill the craftsman. The people who will be participating in the next competition are all elites who can kill their way in from the outside. Okay. Han Dong tentatively pointed at the bathroom door. Can you let me rest in the bathroom? I prefer places with a lot of water. Miro glanced at Han Dong's body with a suspicious gaze. Since he was a teammate and the target chosen by the priest, she didn't have any doubts. She nodded and gave the bathroom to Han Dong. Splash! Han Dong immediately sank his body into the bathtub. Mary, hurry up and come out. What? There are 2 atavistic body shifters outside. One of them is even a psychic. I've already encrypted the bathroom. It's fine. I just want to look at you and wash my eyes. I thought I could accept that whirlpool head, but after staring at it for a long time, it does feel a little uncomfortable. Gurgle gurgle, Meridus's characteristic, allowed her to directly appear from any area related to water. Accompanied by a burst of bubbles, moist curly hair and a slightly round face appeared. This finally replaced the whirlpool face in Han Dong's head. The 2 of them were completely familiar with each other after a series of battles. When Han Dong felt relieved and wanted to rest, a smooth and full thigh landed on the side of the bathtub, acting as a pillow. Stinky man. Mary also knew that Han Dong called her out mainly because he lacked a pillow. Although she cursed, she was still more willing. Chapter 1084. Dong Dong Dong. A series of heavy knocks on the door pulled Han Dong, who was training with a Luna beast in the Dreamlands, back to reality. Then, Maelstrom Marrow's voice came from outside the door. The individuals in the outer tunnel have all been selected. Based on the rule of 3-man team, they have formed a total of 5 teams. We need to go to the venue to draw lots. Where is the venue? At the center of the land deed. Father Lessos used the land deed to create the dual space. Because the venue is at the bottom of the Big Ben, it is at the bottom of the Door of Destiny. Therefore, the venue is also the area most affected by the world erosion. The coverage of the other world might be more than 50%. In other words, we will be fighting in the environment of a Saint-tier world. For shapeshifters like us, there is a certain advantage. The vortex power should be strengthened. When the time comes, then the Saint's messenger that I mentioned before will arrive as well. You must perform well. Han Dong nodded. It was just as he expected. Just the outer tunnel alone had 10% to 20% of the world coverage phenomenon. It was only natural that the coverage of the inner tunnel would increase. If it's more than 50%, the creatures there should be able to take advantage of the geographical advantage. It doesn't matter. I can adapt to any environment. Who knows, I might even be able to obtain some information about the Saint-tier world. Furthermore, no matter how the environment changes, even if it's 100% coverage, as long as it's the same level, no one will be able to defeat that guy. The guy that Han Dong was referring to was Mad Demon. After observing Mad Demon's battle through Eugenist's compound eye, Han Dong had a very high opinion of this prime. His 2 teammates in the resting room were ready to go. Maelstrom Marrow wore a white coat on top of a black tights as a battle outfit. It was quite fitting for her former identity as a psychiatrist. Z maintained his original appearance. He wore a linen hood and a pair of custom-made gloves. He wore a pair of loose pants and walked barefoot on the ground. Even though he looked very lazy, if compared to Z's daily life, this was his usual state of excitement. Miracle of the Maelstrom was an absolute presence for shapeshifters like them. Once fused, they would naturally be able to create a myth and rise to a whole new level. Outside the lounge, there was a flight of stairs that led down to the underground area, where the screening venue was constructed with the title deed. The stairs were also affected by the invasion. The stone staircase turned into a transparent staircase made of glass. The further down they went, the less darkness there was. Instead, it was replaced by a rare scene of light. The white light radiating from the bottom floor passed through the glass stairs beneath everyone's feet, emitting a rainbow light that shone on everyone's bodies. It wasn't just Moreau and Z who were not used to such a situation. Even Han Dong, who had been in London for a long time, couldn't adapt to such a brilliant light. To the locals, the darkness was like their protective umbrella and the source of their strength. This was also why everyone carried a black candle with them when they went out. Once a dark dweller exposed themselves to light, not only would their abilities be limited, Even the most basic cellular reactions of their bodies would slow down, causing their overall attributes to plummet. I didn't expect that after staying in the dark for so long, I would actually feel a little uncomfortable with the light. But then again, once you get used to this light, your body will feel a comfortable warmth, and it can even slightly increase the flow of energy in your body. It's very comfortable. Moreau and Z were surprised after they got used to it. With the influence of their identity as a dark dweller, they had always been repulsed and even afraid of light. Now, after getting used to the light, they felt a comfort they had never experienced before. This kind of warmth, comfort, and even light that could nourish their bodies made them feel extremely comfortable. They even wanted to sleep under this kind of light. For a moment, their dependence on the darkness was greatly reduced. They even had the thought of never returning to London. After passing through the door at the bottom floor, they arrived at the so-called venue. It made Han Dong feel like he was in a paradise, and the irritation in his heart dissipated. There was a pond, lotus leaves, and a crooked ancient tree that was 100 meters tall. There were also some light particles that looked like miniature jellyfish floating in the air. The white light that made people feel comfortable and warm came from the only fruit at the top of the ancient tree. 90% of the vitality energy absorbed by the ancient tree's roots would be transferred to this non-elemental fruit, releasing a light that could nourish all things. Everyone walked on the water. Every step would leave a puddle of stains, which meant that the pond had absorbed the negative interests in everyone's hearts. Even the nervousness of the upcoming competition had dissipated, allowing everyone to reach their best state. They had thought that the erosion of the saint-level world would cause physical discomfort. Now, not only was there no discomfort, but there was a kind of affinity. They could even reach out and grab some particles floating in the air to replenish themselves with energy. Such an environment was perfect for cultivation. However, there were many similar or even better environments in the saint-level world. Everyone seeks the Tao was realized in such a world. Han Dong also quickly noticed the other teams that had come here. None of the 4 original bodies were missing. Miss Sally was also unscathed. Beside her was the terrifying hunter, Campbell, who was shrouded in a cloak, and a teammate they had recruited along the way. However, the situation of one of the teams made Han Dong's scalp tingle. The 2 of them actually formed a team? The first original body, Mad Demon Christopher J. Green, was actually standing together with the 7th original body, Giant Hopper. If the 2 of them worked together, it would really be fatal. At this moment, Father Lessos arrived with a black umbrella that could block the light. The skull and the Bible were hanging at his waist. His head was still shrouded in darkness, and the light here was not suitable for him. There was also a special existence beside the priest. Wearing a golden mask and shrouded in a long robe, the mysterious man held a noble scepter embedded with colorful gems in his hand. He was integrated with the environment, and his entire body was releasing a kind of power of faith, which even appeared in the form of a halo visible to the naked eye. When Han Dong looked at this person, the part of the mantis demon in his body was immediately suppressed. Count hurriedly hid his consciousness under the talent tree. This was the saint from the saint-level world. His level was equivalent to a mythical body. He was both a spectator and a supervisor of everything here. He had yet to explain the rules of the competition to Father Lessos. Under the golden mask, the saint emitted a kind voice. Young people from the other world, this should be the first time you have felt the warm light from the saint-level world. The saint-level world is all-inclusive and welcomes all outsiders. Even individuals like you, who were born infected by filth, can transform and become saints when you ascend to the saint level. I look forward to your performance. Regardless of whether you have triggered a miracle or failed to win, as long as your performance meets the standards in my heart, you will be guided by me and obtain the qualifications to go to the saint-level world to seek the Tao freely. Chapter 1085. Saint Gold Grandmaster Fei. The main purpose of coming here was to watch and select talents, supervise and maintain order. Because he was wearing a golden mask, his facial expression could not be seen. In fact, when all the contestants arrived, the Gold Grandmaster's expression was extremely ugly. Because most of the contestants here were actually hybrid demons. Of the 6 teams, 3 were made up of purebred hybrid demons, 1 team was made up of transformed humans who were affected by the vortex, and the remaining 2 teams were made up of craftsmen from the Saint-level world. This result made him very unhappy. After all, in terms of basic attributes, Saint-level beings restrained impure hybrid demons. After a round of selection, more than half of the craftsmen he brought with him died in the passage. After some bewitching words, the saint created a golden seat for flying and sat alone in the sky to watch the rest of the competition. The manager of the competition was still Father Lessos. The area covered by the black umbrella was self-contained. Father Lessos stood in the middle of the fairyland with the side of absolute darkness and announced the rules. The final selection will be divided into 2 stages. First, confrontation. The person in charge of each team will draw lots, and the teams with the same number will fight. The vanguard, general, and general will be sent to fight according to the order of battle. Once your identity is confirmed, it cannot be changed. If you change your identity in private and change the order of battle, you will be directly killed by me and the saint. The winning team will enter the second stage. Second, ascension. The saint specially brought a gold saint level, and the vortex miracle was also moved to the top of the stairs. The winning team will obtain the right to ascend. Ascension was an important ceremony in the saint-level world, and it was also a path that individuals had to go through to obtain identity and power. The first individual to complete the ascension meant that there was a higher chance of being accepted by the vortex miracle. The saint also said that there was only one chance to touch the miracle. However, individuals who performed well in the selection competition had the chance to cut off their connection with the current world, completely change their identity, and go to the saint-level world to live a new life. I hope you can show your best strength. Representatives of the 6 teams, please come to me to draw lots. At this moment, the saint sitting on the golden seat suddenly raised his hand, and his voice came from the top. Father Lessos, among these teams, one of them is yours. To ensure absolute fairness, the lot-drawing ceremony will be led by both of us. Father, you will still be in charge of drawing lots, but I will provide the tools for the drawing. After that, 6 golden medallions slowly descended from the sky. The number imprinted in gold could not be changed. Even if Father Lessos wanted to do something, he would be discovered. At this moment, the priest's face under the cover of darkness changed slightly. Indeed, Father Lessos had a certain degree of selfishness. He really wanted the 3 transformers under his command to obtain the qualifications to ascend the stairs. However, the prerequisite to being qualified was to win the competition. As a mythical body of the hybrid demons, he naturally knew how powerful the 4 primordial spirits were. It was not easy for Father Lessos to win the qualification to be in charge of the final screening. He wanted to go easy on his own people, or at least avoid these monstrous protoplasmic bodies. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the chance to ascend the stairs, let alone accept the miracle. Furthermore, currently, there was still the worst option in the selection competition, a terrifying team formed by the 1st and 7th essence. If they were unlucky, they would not even have a 1% chance of winning and would definitely die in the competition. If the darkness overflowed from the priest's face, his current expression could scare ordinary people to death within a few hundred meters. However, he quickly suppressed his emotions and made it seem like there was no change. He only paused for 2 seconds. His tone was also very calm. Representatives of each team, please step forward to draw lots. On Han Dong's side, Vortex Lady Marrow naturally stepped forward as the representative. Han Dong also vaguely saw some clues. The little magic eye read the dark aura that enveloped the priest, and there was a slight change just now. Father Lesos seems to have been tricked. Judging from the fact that he used his privilege to accept me in advance, the groups here should be able to do some tricks to prevent us from running into the protoplasmic bodies. In this way, the relationship between the priest and the Golden Saint seems to be very ordinary. It could even be said that it is very fragile. This is a good thing. However, this also puts us under a lot of pressure. We can only hope that Marrow's luck will be better. 1 in 5 chance, please don't fall for it. If they really ran into the first essence, the only thing Han Dong could do was to protect himself. It would be difficult to carry out the follow-up plan. The current situation made Han Dong very nervous. The only thing he could do was pray. The drawing of lots ended. 3 different patterns appeared on the surface of the golden medallion. They were cloud, stone, and tree. The corresponding pattern in Marrow's hand was tree. Tree. Which team does it correspond to? His little magic eye was fully activated. Han Dong did not care about the situation of the other teams. All his attention was fixed on Mad Devil's hand. Not only Han Dong, at least 2 other eyes were looking at the golden medallion in Mad Devil's hand. Stone, when he saw the mark on it, Han Dong let out a sigh of relief. My God, I haven't been so nervous in a long time. Speaking of which, who drew tree? Just as Han Dong wanted to peek at the other team's golden lots, the corresponding pattern of each team was clearly reflected on the surface of the water below their feet. As for the other team that drew tree, it happened to be the black goat, Miss Sally. Their gazes met. Han Dong did not know how to respond other than smiling awkwardly. At the same time, Han Dong also noticed a problem. Because of the 3-man team, a hybrid demon with a special appearance joined Sally's team. When he was anthropomorphized, he actually took the posture of an Indian monk. He was completely different from the little monk Gu Su that Han Dong met in Prometheus. Not only in appearance but also in temperament. He wore a shabby monk's robe and had a Middle Eastern appearance. He had a string of huge prayer beads hanging around his neck. He looked about 70 years old. He was thin and tall, but he had big feet that were about 60 yards long. His whole body exuded a strange demonic aura. This monk is a bit strange. I have to be careful if I encounter him. Han Dong also took the opportunity to look at the other teams to see which team had drawn the worst lot. The other team, shown as Stone, was a team of craftsmen from the Saint Rank world. However, this team of craftsmen did not look weak at all. They were much stronger than the tailor team that Han Dong encountered. Interesting. I can see how strong this Mad Devil is. At the same time, I can also evaluate the power of the giant hopper. This match should be very exciting. Chapter 1086. There were a total of 3 matches. Cloud, Stone, and Tree would fight in the order. Cloud, a team formed by the 5th origin, the revered Eugenus, against a team of craftsmen from a saint-level world. According to Sally's description, Eugenus was an evil existence. Once you became Eugenus' target, you would often die before you could see his face clearly. Moreover, Eugenus was proficient in an ancient secret technique passed down from the ancients. In terms of purity, it was higher than the secret techniques used by the mantis of the same level. Even in the mantis circle, Eugenus' ability was rated as heretical power. Currently, this man with dirty green hair and a foul smell appeared. He was Eugenus' human form. When an outsider looked at Eugenus, they would feel like they were looking at thousands of eyes. Eugenus, called a heretic existence by the mantis demons. He has an extremely rare ancient inheritance in his body. Let's see how strong he is in a head-on fight. Eugenus' teammates were a pair of twins. To be exact, they were a pair of twins. According to the rules of the London game, the appearance of the humanoid state was, they were similar to a pair of twins, Nordic witches. Their bodies were white and flawless. Their bodies were only covered with thin white clothes. At the same time, they also had a suction cup tail. The end of the tail was toothed and had the function of eating. Under normal circumstances, their tails were completely sucked together and they floated in the air. As twins, they could unleash extremely strong abilities when working together. Once they were alone, their strength would be greatly reduced. The forced separation in the last round had put them in a difficult situation. It was only because of Eugenius that they were saved and led the two to the periphery that they managed to fight their way here. However, the current competition mode required them to fight separately again. Lord Eugenius, is there any way for us to fight together? Because the two had been saved by Eugenius and had done some private things, they had changed the way they addressed Eugenius. They seemed to have become Eugenius' slaves. Under the messy green hair, a mouth full of black teeth wriggled gently and made uncomfortable sounds. There were even green plagues exhaling at the same time as he spoke. I didn't set the rules. You can only fight one by one according to the order. Just fight. I have a way to win the game. The order of appearance was set by Eugenius. He put himself last. The first to appear was the elder sister, Ruth, followed by the younger sister, Luna. The competition with the theme of cloud officially began. On the surface of the water where everyone was standing, a large amount of clouds and mist suddenly rose. The thick clouds and mist not only blocked their vision, but also greatly blocked the spread of their spiritual power. Even Han Dong's little magic I would be greatly affected. The sisters' abilities were also related to their minds to a certain extent. As they stared at the clouds in front of them, the uneasiness in their hearts intensified. The rules of the competition were best of three. Once both sisters lost, the first round would be over, and Eugenius wouldn't even have a chance to fight. However, Eugenius showed a strange smile and urged, "Go, there's no need to worry." Clap, their tails separated, and the joint state was cancelled. Instantly, the aura emitted by the two of them decreased by more than half. They couldn't use their joint secret technique or an extremely rare combination secret technique. Fighting alone, the two sisters might not even be able to defeat Count, who had just advanced to the atavistic body. Cloud first round, the demonic bug girl, Ruth, versus the crystal craftsman, Belle. Ruth's opponent was also a female. Just like most craftsmen, the head of a bell was similar to a cluster of crystals, densely packed with scale-like crystals. The fact that Belle could participate in the competition here meant that she had already killed an atavistic body in the outer passage. The battle began. The battle ended in just 30 seconds, and the crystal craftsman, Belle, won the competition with an overwhelming victory. The saint on the golden throne clapped his hands slightly, very satisfied with the result. In his knowledge, they were the nemesis of the hybrid demons, and it was normal for them to crush their peers. Han Dong, who was watching the battle from the sidelines, frowned slightly. Is it because of the characteristics of the symbiotic body that their strength will be greatly reduced when fighting alone? However, this craftsman is indeed powerful. She used the characteristics of the clouds and mist to create a clone so that the opponent can't recognize the real one. Also, the crystals on her body can reflect spells, and many of the hybrid demon secret techniques are useless against her. Inside the arena, due to being crushed by the crystals, only a pile of minced meat was left on the arena. Poor Sister Ruth didn't even have a complete body part left. As for her sister's crushing defeat and death, her sister, Luna, naturally fell into a state of extreme sadness and even fear. It seemed that she would definitely lose the next battle. In the team, Eugenius still had a sickly smile on his face. Eugenius wants to lose? Is it because of the number 1 origin essence? Not only Han Dong, but the other hybrid demons present also had the same suspicion. Did Eugenius consider that there were many masters present, or was he not interested in the London game and was forced to come here? He deliberately found two sisters who couldn't win and used their deaths to withdraw from the London game? At this moment, Eugenius suddenly moved. He looked at the referee, Father Lessos, who was about to clean up the arena. "Father, can you give me this pile of minced meat? I'm a bit hungry." Eugenius' words shocked many people present. Some were confused, some were disgusted, and some showed disdain. The priest hesitated for a moment and agreed to Eugenius' request. "Thank you, Father." Ignoring the gazes of the people present, Eugenius was like a hungry wild dog, directly lying on the ground and eating. When he finished eating all the minced meat, Eugenius didn't forget to lick a few more mouthfuls. Such a vile action almost aroused the disgust of everyone present. Strangely, as the victim's sister, Luna, didn't have much of an expression. And when Eugenius finished eating her sister's body, Luna even smiled through her tears, showing a sickly smile. The sadness from before seemed to be an act. That damned sister is finally dead. That useless thing has always been dragging me down. After eating, Eugenius' stomach had been doing some kind of reaction, as if it was integrating and rearranging the minced meat. When they returned to the team, Luna showed a look full of love and hugged Eugenius, kissing him passionately. It seemed to be intimate contact between the opposite sex. In fact, the minced meat that Eugenius had swallowed into his body was purified by an ancient secret technique and turned into a refined meatball. The current hug and kiss was just transporting the meatball into his sister's body. Then, an equally beautiful face appeared at the back of his sister's head. At this point, as the demonic bug sisters, they had achieved a perfect fusion. They emitted an aura similar to the origin essence body, stronger than when they were originally united. "Thank you, Lord Eugenius. Go quickly. Finish the competition as soon as possible." Chapter 1087. The first round of the competition with the theme "Will Cloud" came to the final third match. In the second match, due to the twin sister Luna's overwhelming victory, she made up for her elder sister's loss in the first match. Now it was Eugene's turn. At this time, the first original substance, Mad Demon, and Father Lysos, who was a mythical body, were watching the match carefully. This was the first public match for the original substance body other than the original substance game. Everyone wanted to see Eugene, who always liked to hide and trick people. What kind of performance would he have in this one-on-one arena? Not long after the match started, everyone's eyes changed. The crazy young man showed a slightly tense smile and commented in a low voice, "Eugene, this guy has changed so much. No wonder he has been engraved with the things left by the ancients in his body. It seems that I underestimated you a bit. You should still be in the developing stage during the original substance competition. I really want to fight with you again. What an interesting guy." In the arena with the theme "Will Cloud," an area belonging to the Saint Level world, was polluted by Eugene. The clouds turned green and grew eyes. A large number of green tentacles grew on the side of the arena and kept secreting smelly body fluid. The quiet and clear lake had become as sticky, smelly, and dirty as a sewer. As for Eugene, who liked to trick people in everyone's impression, he also showed another side, which could be called battle mode. The base, formed by countless eyeballs, carried Eugene in a sitting posture and floated in the air. The whole thing was in a very strange mood. Eugene's opponent was also the strongest person in the opposing team. It was a silversmith Deuce, who was very professional in exorcism. With a pure silver cross as the head, his whole body was covered with silver, and the silver transformation on the cellular level made him look like Silver Shadowman in Marvel. He was an exorcism tool and was highly valued by the Golden Saint. He was certain that he would perform outstandingly in the process of this world erosion and win the victory for the Saint Stage world, causing the hybrid demons to be wary of him. However, the exorcism that he expected didn't achieve the desired effect. No matter what kind of silver was thrown at Eugene, it would be distorted by some visual field and couldn't hit. As the pollution spread throughout the arena, the silversmith Deuce chose to use his final killing move. He plucked off the cross head and turned it into a real silver greatsword. He quickly moved to the front of Eugenius, the source of corruption. His silver greatsword emitted a strong purifying light as it slashed down. The silver sword contained the way that blacksmith cultivated, and it cut through Eugenius' eyeball barrier. Whoosh! He was unable to dodge. The great sword cleaved Eugenius apart from the top of his head. Originally, he thought that he could completely split it open, but he was stuck at the abdomen. However, in such a tragic scene, everyone thought that the silversmith had won such a pure saint-grade weapon, when it cut into the hybrid demon's body, was enough to instantly vaporize the hybrid demon. However, something unexpected happened. Eugenius, whose fleshly body had been cut open, had smoke rising from his body as if he were evaporating. In fact, the holy sword that had cut into his body was slowly corroding. Green fluorescent eyeballs began to spread on the surface of the sword, infecting silversmith Dirk's body. Not only could it ignore attribute restraints, but it could also invade in reverse. This scene almost caused the saint to stand up from his golden chair. At this moment, under the golden mask was a grimace. What kind of monster is this? Dirk Eredwa's silversmith was actually unable to restrain him, and he could even be invaded in reverse. This is no longer a hybrid demon provided by the Black Tower. The plague he had unleashed carried a very ancient feeling. Such an existence must be killed. Otherwise, it will be a threat to our world. The Golden Saint made up his mind to kill such an anomaly at the end of the competition. Eugenius' performance had far exceeded his expectations of the hybrid demon, and even made him feel an inexplicable threat. Slap! Silver liquid splattered in all directions. This pitiful silversmith had been turned into an eyeball for Eugenius to control, and his soul was also imprisoned within. As Eugenius left the field, the plague that had spread between the clouds and in the pond instantly returned to his body, and everything returned to the comfortable and pleasant state of the fairyland. It wasn't that the silversmith was too weak, as he had killed 2 hybrid demons outside, but Eugenius was too powerful. In the first round of a cloud, Eugenius' team won. This is the strength of a body of origin? Han Dong stared at Eugenius, who was holding a silver eyeball and walking slowly off the field. His facial muscles twitched slightly. In his mind, Han Dong had already labeled this person as extremely dangerous. Black Goat Sally also secretly gritted her teeth. Eugenius' improvement speed was beyond imagination, and if the rankings were to be rearranged, their positions might be switched. Lord Eugenius. Sister Luna didn't care about Eugenius' dirty image at all, and directly pounced on him when he left the field. Firstly, it was out of gratitude, and secondly, it was out of admiration for the strong. She kissed him from the front, and then kissed her sister's face at the back of the head. Eugenius didn't have the mood. Slap! A green tentacle directly slapped Luna away, and he sat on the ground alone and began to study the silver eyeball and the structure of the blacksmith's life. Luna, who was sent flying, wasn't angry. Instead, she showed a very comfortable expression and quietly crawled behind Eugenius, silently waiting for the Lord's next order. As the competition director, Father Lyso's expression didn't change at all. This result seemed to be within his expectations. Next, the theme of the competition will be stone, and Christopher, wait a minute. The voice from the golden seat came again. The group of people I brought here seems to be a little uncomfortable due to world shift and the change in environment. I hope to change the order of the competition. First, the theme of the competition will be a tree. The second, interference. Considering that the interference this time wouldn't have a big impact, and that it was necessary for the overall situation, Father Lysos restrained his temper and didn't object. He nodded and acquiesced. No matter how the order was changed, the competition was inevitable, and it was only a matter of time. Just as Father Lysos took a step back again and prepared to let the team that had drawn the tree to prepare for the competition in advance, something strange happened. Mad Devil, Christopher J. Green, who was originally with his teammates, disappeared. The next second, he appeared in front of the golden seat. With his hands in his trouser pockets, he bent down and looked at the saint in front of him. "Haven't the rules of the competition been set? I'm ready to kill. Why did you suddenly change the rules?" F***CKU. Ignoring identity. Ignoring the difference in level. Just because he felt unhappy, the Mad Devil directly went to find the Gold Saint, who was comparable to a mythical body. He raised his foot and intended to kick the other party's golden mask. The next second, a golden wall suddenly appeared between the two of them. When the kick landed on the surface of the wall, a layer of ripples appeared. At the same time, a reaction force with the effect of the golden holy seal sent the Mad Devil flying more than 20 meters away. The skin on the sole of his foot was broken and golden liquid flowed out. It was extremely painful. The Mad Devil was so angry that his teeth itched. He directly broke the whole leg and threw it away. He took out a new leg from his ear hole and installed it on himself. Just as he was about to continue fighting with the saint, an arm fell on his shoulder, and the dark breath that touched his soul instantly spread throughout his body. At the same time, an unbreakable dark shackle was formed in Grimm's hand. "Grimm, for violating the competition rules, you are punished with a hand imprisonment until the end of the competition. Saint Emissary, are you satisfied with this punishment?" Chapter 1088. Saint Gold Master Fey. He was both the invitee and the overseer of the world's invasion. Although the sudden request to change the order of the competition was a little overstepping his authority, the change of the order would not have a substantial impact on the competition. Besides, the Night Priest, who was the referee of the competition, had acquiesced. No one would have thought. The Mad Devil Grimm, whose level was one level lower. He actually came to the saint, who was comparable to a mythical being, and scolded him. He even wanted to attack the saint. However, it was this kind of crazy behavior that was worthy of the blood that flowed in Grimm's body. Even after the first clash between Grimm and the saint, Grimm remained unscathed and wanted to continue his attack. Fortunately, the Night Priest suppressed him. Due to Grimm's violation of the rules, he was deprived of the right to use his hands in the next round. The saint also knew that it was inappropriate for him to change the order of the competition at the last minute, so he and the Night Priest each took a step back and accepted the punishment. Of course, the Gold Saint had his own selfish motive. Mad Devil Grimm's kick just now was not a simple one. It left a shallow footprint on the surface of the saint's clothes. He can shake the golden wall with a single kick. This crazy young man should be one of the top figures of the same level in this world. His threat is no less than the monster that could reverse contaminate the silverware in the first round of the competition. This probing attack seems to have attracted a lot of interesting little guys. If we can get rid of these little guys with potential in advance, it will be more beneficial for our subsequent erosion plan. My hands are restricted. It's a good chance to kill you. Under the saint's command, the last team of craftsmen immediately surrounded them. The saints seemed to have changed the order and arranged a strategy for this team. In fact, some kind of golden liquid that symbolized the saint's origin and carried a rich divinity was flowing out from the bottom of the mask, filling up a golden wine cup that was studded with gems. This scene was completely invisible to the others. The saint used his own control of the fairyland to cover and conceal the environment. When the others looked, they could only see the saint and his subordinates having a normal discussion. Visual switch. Han Dong. Mad Devil Green's actions allowed Han Dong to obtain extremely important information. With his 100% demonic eye, He was able to see the entire process of the two of them clashing head-on. This kind of information was far too valuable. Han Dong even wanted to personally thank this crazy little brother. A divinity barrier made of gold can reflect all incoming attacks and bestow the gold attribute. As a result, Grimm's right leg was injured. Gold flowed out from the wound and was unable to heal. Even his entire leg had lost its mobility. If I guessed correctly, the golden wall should be a representation of a domain. A mythical level domain would completely materialize the domain surrounding the body and grant it with divinity. Since any form of attack could be reflected, if he wanted to break through, he would have to use his domain to meet it head-on. As for Mad Demon, this guy seemed to be crazy, but in fact, he was not an absolute lunatic. When he realized the danger, he decisively abandoned his entire right leg. He even had the intention to disassemble his right leg when he was sent flying. His body seems to be connected to the abyss, and his body is even built with the abyss as the prototype. The related abilities are also built around the abyss. This was the information that Han Dong had obtained, and it would definitely be useful in the future. Clap. Suddenly, there was a loud clap that interrupted his thoughts. What are you thinking? It's almost our turn to go on stage. Hurry up and get ready. Standing in front of Han Dong was the team leader, Miss Marrow. The two eyes that were spinning in the vortex on her face were full of uneasiness. Obviously, in the first round of the competition, the fifth origin, Eugenis' performance was too terrifying, and it severely damaged Marrow's self-confidence. Now, her team was about to face the black goat, Sally, who was one rank higher than Eugenis in the origin ranking. According to Eugenis' performance, even IZ is likely to be defeated by this group of origin bodies. The changes brought to us by the vortex do exist, but it's still difficult to be on par with this group of monsters at the moment. Our only chance of winning is whether we can stagger that black goat. Unfortunately, we don't know their ranking. At this moment, Sally and the others who were standing on the other side of the competition field actually stood in line, according to the order of appearance. At the same time, they took the initiative to reveal the ranking information to Han Dong. Vanguard, Terror Hunter Campbell General, Hybrid Demon with the appearance of an Indian monk General, Sally, the black goat. This action immediately resolved Marrow's confusion. She secretly smiled, but at the same time felt a little uncomfortable. As expected of the origin bodies, they don't care about dark dwellers like us at all. In that case, Z will deal with the first Terror Hunter, and I'll deal with the second. As long as we win the first 2 rounds, there's no need for the third round, and we'll advance directly. Han Dong naturally understood Marrow's intention. Tianji's horse race. What if one of you loses? If we lose, everything will be over. Nicholas, you will also give your life for the cause of London. Marrow's meaning was clear. Han Dong was no match for the fourth origin body. She was just betting on her and Z. Oh. Han Dong shrugged, looking unconcerned. Of course, Marrow's idea was not wrong at all. Even Count in Han Dong's body, or Meritus temporarily hiding in his body, would think that Han Dong was no match for the origin body. Even Han Dong himself did not have much confidence. But this Tianji's horse race arrangement was in line with Han Dong's plan. If he did not arrange it this way, it would be very difficult for him. He raised his hand. Black sand formed a comfortable reclining chair. Han Dong made a very lazy appearance, leaning against the side of the field to rest. I hope Big Z and Miss Marrow can work hard. If they can really win 2 rounds, I can enter the final round as a bystander. At this moment, the competition with the theme of tree began. The crooked trees on the outskirts of the fairyland suddenly began to grow wildly. Tree trunks and branches of various sizes quickly occupied the entire lake, forming a tangled forest of tree trunks. The height was at least 100 meters, reaching a kind of tree world feeling. The uneven tree trunks widened the competition area vertically, providing more competition space. First round, Vanguard Battle Terror Hunter Campbell vs. Whirlpool Man Z. Campbell, a mantis demon from the outer star field. Although his strength is not as good as the origin body, he is still very powerful. Unfortunately, the restriction of tree makes it difficult for him to use his aerial advantage, and his strength will be affected. As for Z, according to Marrow, he is one of the best atavistic bodies among the dark inhabitants, and his body is affected by the depth of the whirlpool and has undergone a unique change. It is difficult to determine the outcome of this battle. Less than 30 seconds had passed since the start of the game. Crack, 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 at least a dozen thick branches were broken. Oh, there is such a guy in London? That's interesting. Mad Demon, whose hands were bound, also turned his attention to the field, marveling at someone's performance. In the tree world, one of Campbell's proudest wings was completely shattered, and the remaining part was twisted into a ball. He stared at his opponent wearing a linen hood not far away with an expression of disbelief. Chapter 1089. He can actually achieve such a high conversion rate? This hybrid demon's fusion rate and proficiency with the whirlpool is even higher than the whirlpool craftsman's. And he also fused with the darkness attribute he learned as a hybrid demon. I didn't expect that in a world with conflicting attributes, there would be such a perfect fusion. This person can be brought back, and he will definitely be chosen as a good experimental material. The Gold Saint gave a high evaluation of Z's performance. However, he looked down on this type of person in his heart. All the good words he said before the competition were all lies. A hybrid demon that was accepted as a saint would not be recognized in a saint realm world. Once they were brought over by the saint, they would not be able to enjoy the so-called preferential treatment and freedom. They would be reduced to the lowest level of existence, and would even become a pitiful experimental material. This guy, Han Dong, who was watching the fight, was also shocked by Z's punch. The purity was too high. As a dark inhabitant, flesh modified his physical body, the darkness technology embedded in his body and the whirlpool attribute fused with his body reached the level of a trinity. If Campbell didn't use the wings of fear that he was so proud of to block it, this duel might have already ended. Other than Han Dong, there was another person who was very interested in Z's performance. It was the hybrid demon Giant Hall, who had been changed to be the last to fight. Oh, I didn't expect London to have such an interesting person. Just looking at the purity of his physical body, he is very good. More importantly, his technique. I have never seen this kind of technique that can fuse high-speed rotation into his attacks. And it's not just his attacks. All of his movements have a rotation effect, causing his overall strength to have a qualitative increase. No wonder he had to compromise with the power of an other realm. It's not a loss to bring such an increase. Even I am a bit moved. I didn't come here in vain. If I can obtain the final miracle, can I also obtain this technique? If I can fuse this rotation technique into my attacks, the destructive power will at least double or even more. This kind of move that has a strong defense breaking effect will definitely be able to break through the defense that I found difficult to break in the past. I might be able to rise to second place in the next Origin competition. In the tree world, one of Campbell's wings of fear was destroyed, so his overall mobility was severely reduced. However, he did not panic. Instead, he changed his fighting style. He gave up on flying and retracted his other wing into his body. Then, he used all of his hybrid demon energy in the form of tentacles. Isomorphic snake claw. Campbell's tentacle was a kind of white tentacle covered in terrifying black patterns, and its tip was a snake's head. Currently, Over 20 snake-shaped tentacles drilled out from Campbell's arms and underwent isomerization, transforming into incomparably sharp claws. The surface of each claw was covered with a layer of black miasma. The sharp claws could pierce and tear apart the enemy, and they could also transform into poisonous snakes that could lengthen or shorten according to Campbell's will, injecting lethal venom into the target's body. Campbell could even construct his entire arm into a large venomous python. This kind of bionic transformation was similar to Count's bloodhound, but the way he attacked was completely different. In the meantime, Campbell's eyes also gave birth to snake eyes in the form of double pupils, increasing his ability to capture movement. The remaining long wing of fear was split into 4 by Campbell, transforming into small wings with indescribable faces. They were symmetrically long on the back and could provide short-distance, extremely fast flight, restoring mobility and increasing balance. It was more suitable for fighting. Come, fellow who betrayed the hybrid demons, Z, who was wearing a strange linen hood, was using a twisted and strange pace to pass through the tree trunks and arrive on the same branch as Campbell. A head-on collision. Campbell suddenly swung out his spiked right arm that was surrounded by layers of sharp claws, intending to clash head-on with his opponent. However, Z's attack pattern suddenly changed. Whether it was Z's boxer image or his previous attacks, Campbell was certain that Z's punching pattern was based on human boxing. However, there was a change, and the speed was even faster. Z's arm actually turned into a whip while he was swinging it. The spiral arm stirred in the air and whipped towards Campbell like a long whip, using both arms together, coupled with the extremely fast punches. It was as though there were more than 10 high-speed whips that struck Campbell's body at the same time. What? Campbell's reaction was already very fast. He immediately changed into a defensive state, but he was still one step too late. Boom! More than 10 isomerized tentacles were directly broken. All the hybrid demons had a deep understanding of the pain of the tentacles being destroyed. However, the most serious injury wasn't to the tentacles. Campbell's expression was extremely ugly. The right side of his body was almost numb. The whip just now had hit his right waist when he wasn't defending. The whirlpool had the effect of breaking defense, instantly tearing apart the defensive snake scales he had left under his skin. The flesh on his waist was completely distorted, and a tumor-like whirlpool lump could be seen. The body tissues within 20 centimeters were completely crushed, and the energy transmission route was also disrupted. Campbell lost. Han Dong concluded. With such an injury, there was no chance of turning the situation around. There was no time to take a breather. Z stepped on the whirlpool and rapidly teleported between the trees. Just as Campbell crashed into a thick tree trunk, Z had already arrived in front of him. When Z raised his fist, strands of dense dark energy scattered around his arm in a whirlpool shape. "I can't disappoint Miss Sally. Let's fall into the abyss together." Campbell endured his injuries and used all the tentacles in his body. Creak, creak, creak. Hundreds of snake-shaped tentacles crazily flowed out from all the holes on Campbell's body. They gathered on his right arm and formed a giant python with a ghost face, swallowing Z in front of him. A fist against the giant python. Campbell was once again sent flying by the extremely pure fist energy. Like a spiral bullet, he crashed through layers of tree branches and finally fell into the Wonderland pond at the bottom. However, Z was also injured. The dark whirlpool formed by the fist tore apart the giant python's body, but a part of it remained. Schwa! The mask on Z's face was torn apart by the fangs. What was exposed was an ugly and distorted face. It didn't seem to be caused by the whirlpool, but a mark left behind by Campbell. Winner Z. After the results of the competition were announced, Black Goat Sally immediately dived into the water and fished Campbell out. Although he was seriously injured, he wasn't dead yet. A drop of purple liquid from Sally fell into Campbell's mouth. Immediately, small purple tentacles appeared in his body and started to repair his wounds, inducing new tissues to form. Sally stared at Campbell, who was seriously injured, and said in a low voice, "Ah, Louis, you can kill him directly in the next round. Leave it to me." The man who looked like an Indian monk revealed a friendly smile and kept his palms together as he walked up the tree arena. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.